He returns to the city, a global rank 1 nobody knows, and is already preparing to shock the Ares Guild. How did a mere human take down a sacred blue flame bird? To understand this legend, come back with me to the beginning of this journey. The gaze of a lost boy carries the weight of a world he barely knows yet. A ghostly hand touches his shoulder, and a somber voice echoes from the absolute void, "Save this world." He feels the icy touch as other hands emerge from the shadows, desperately pleading for help. You are the hero. Help! Hundreds of them, a sea of the dead crying out for salvation in an abyss that seems to have no end. The boy trembles in terror as voices scream in his ear, demanding that he be the great savior. With a dirty face and tears streaming down, he calls out for the only person who could offer comfort. Mother. He faces his own mother and asks the question any scared child would, why do I have to be the hero? The woman stands there, motionless, like a statue of light that brings no warmth to her own son. She touches his face, but her words are cold and don't hide the cruel truth. You are afraid, my son. Her face hides something dark that little Soohyun cannot yet understand, but he feels the danger. The scene shifts, and a terrible destiny unfolds before the tear-filled eyes of that defenseless child. Her voice cuts through the air with a commanding tone that chills the blood. Stop crying and die like a hero. Those hands no longer beg for help. They seize and drag the boy into the darkness of the abyss. He plummets into the void with nothing to grasp, as the light from the surface slowly fades away. The impact is brutal, and the world explodes into pure chaos, blood, and real war cries. Debris flies everywhere as time flashes by in the blink of an eye for the young chosen one. The boy is gone, and now a man with a sharp gaze and a face scarred by war breathes with great difficulty. The system glows in the rainy darkness, confirming the truth. The awakened Kim Sung-bin has finally risen from the ground. He lets out a deep groan of pain, feeling every part of his body protest the effort he made. Sung-bin looks at the disaster around him and mutters to himself, "And here I thought I'd get some rest." He leans on his sword, the only ally left in that landscape of total destruction and death. The roar of monsters echoes through the ruins, warning that their hunt is far from over today. The warrior lets out a tired sigh and tightens his grip on the weapon, seeing that peace is an illusion. He faces the endless horde and prepares, watching his mana rise as enemies rapidly approach. The creatures snarl and charge with bloodlust, ready to tear apart the last man standing. The dark-haired man wipes sweat from his face and takes a deep breath, trying to maintain absolute focus. He lunges into the danger with a speed that human eyes can barely follow now. Winged monsters dive from the sky like living arrows, attempting to tear the hero's flesh with their sharp claws. With a precise movement, he dodges the first attack and prepares the counterattack that will decide everything. His blade slices through the air, and the creature's blood splatters on the shattered ground of that dead city. He steps firmly on the neck of a fallen dragon, finishing the monster without showing any mercy or hesitation. More of them emerge from the shadows of the destroyed buildings, surrounding the hero from every possible side on the field. He spins his body and delivers a circular strike that sends several creatures flying with brute force. Battle is a blur of metal and fangs, where a simple mistake could mean the end of everything. Sweating and gasping, he catches his breath for a second before the true nightmare appears before him. A monstrous voice vibrates through the air and mocks the wounded warrior. You truly are the hero of humanity. A gigantic claw covered in purple energy emerges from the rubble, destroying what remained of the surrounding walls. The colossal horned creature reveals itself, emanating an aura of death that would make anyone flee in terror. The monster gazes at the small man before him and says with contempt, "What enviable strength you possess, human." The hero lifts his head, his gaze defiant even as he stands on the verge of total physical collapse. The demonic being introduces himself with a pride that makes the ground tremble with every word spoken. "I, Fafnir," he continues, sealing the warrior's fate with a death sentence disguised as praise. "I acknowledge your right." Fafnir roars that he will claim that strength for himself as soon as he fells the last defender of the human race. The impact of an invisible attack slams the hero against the concrete, making his bones crack with pain. He coughs blood, feeling the metallic taste fill his mouth as he desperately tries to remain conscious. The system's warning flashes bright red. Fatigue has reached its limit, and his body is giving up, Looking at the giant monster, he lets out a bitter laugh. Is this truly my end? Voices from the past return like a cruel whisper, laughing at his failure to save what remained of the world. The sky is consumed by winged shadows that block the scant light remaining on that gray afternoon. Thousands of monsters surround what is left of civilization, awaiting only the final command to attack everything. The hero closes his eyes for an instant, feeling the weight of failure crush what remained of his soul. The last words that leave his lips are a dry lament. I couldn't protect anyone. Fafnir attacks with full force, mocking the idea of heroism as he unleashes his power upon the fallen man. The final blow descends like a hammer, extinguishing the light and leaving only the silence of total defeat. Someone calls out to him from afar, an irritating voice that doesn't fit the end of the world. Kim Soohyun suddenly opens his eyes, confused by the excessive brightness now hitting his face. He blinks several times, trying to understand where the monsters went and why he's in a calm place. A familiar face appears above him, yelling, "Hey, why did you faint out of nowhere? We thought you died." He's in shock, seeing that he's surrounded by boys his age in ordinary school clothes. Soohyun jumps up startled, making the bullies recoil from his strange and swift reaction. He remains in absolute silence, processing the strange sensation of being in a body that feels too weak. His hands are clean, without the battle scars he felt he had just seconds ago. The sound of the city isn't of explosions, but of birds and cars passing far from that schoolyard. Kwon Jang-hyuk, the redhead bully, approaches with a crooked smile, ready to continue the daily humiliation. Soohyun looks at him with such a cold gaze that the aggressor even hesitates for a brief moment. The other gang members laugh and Jang-hyuk taunts, "It's time for that promised beating." Jang-hyuk grabs his shirt collar and tells him to brace his teeth for the incoming punch. The bully's fist flies towards Soohyun's face, but something inside him reacts purely on instinct. With an ease no one expected, the boy blocks the blow using only one of his free hands. Jang-hyuk freezes in surprise, not understanding how that trash managed to stop his best direct attack. In a swift movement, Soohyun spins his body and lands a devastating punch that sends the bully to the ground. Silence falls over the place as everyone watches the gang leader lying down and groaning in pain. The other thugs retreat, terrified by the sudden change in attitude of the boy they always stepped on. Soohyun looks at his own hand and says, "Sorry, my hand moved on its own. Are you crazy?" Shouts of anger begin, but the sound of police sirens cuts the tension and makes everyone freeze. One of the boys desperately warns that the police are coming and they need to run right now. Jang-hyuk gets up furiously and promises revenge before running. "You better show up at school tomorrow." Soohyun stands there, repeating his own name and feeling that something is very wrong with his identity. A sharp headache hits him as he tries to understand if the hero memories were real. He walks alone through a construction site, feeling his body ache in a way he doesn't understand. He picks up an old cell phone from the ground, seeing the reflection of a young face he barely recognizes. He complains about the device's quality while trying to process who those boys were who attacked him just now. His gaze drifts to the horizon, searching for answers that the current world seems unwilling to give. He stares at his own reflection on the phone's black screen and quietly asks who he really is. The vision of the phantom hands returns, haunting his mind even in the middle of the sunny, calm day. He sees himself again as the crying child, surrounded by the unbearable weight of a terrible divine mission. The voice echoes again, demanding that he save the world, but he just wants to be a normal child. The hands touch him, draining his energy and begging for help that he doesn't feel capable of giving. It's a sea of agony that pulls him down, reminding him that the title of hero is a curse. He tries to scream, but his voice vanishes as shadows cover him completely in a cold, deadly embrace. Little Soohyun cries for his mother, but she remains there, a distant presence that offers no warmth. He asks why he was chosen, but silence is the only answer he receives from the cruel universe. His mother's face shines with a blinding light, concealing any trace of humanity or real compassion. She says he is her son, but her touch seems to brand his skin with a bloody destiny. Her smile is enigmatic, as if she knows his pain is necessary for the greater plan. The phantom hands now push him, forcing the boy to face the abyss opening beneath his feet. She repeats the cold command, "Die as a hero," and pushes him without hesitation into the freefall. He falls into darkness, watching the hands disappear as gravity pulls him into a new and terrible reality. His body hits the ground of a world in flames, where childhood dies to make way for the warrior. Explosions light up the black sky, revealing the silhouettes of monsters that now dominate the lawless land. The smell of burning and blood fills the air, awakening survival instincts he didn't even know he possessed. A man with a deep scar glares at him, showing that in this place, only the strong can breathe. Kim Sung-bin rises, wielding his sword with a determination born from the deepest, darkest despair. He grinds his teeth, ignoring the fatigue that tries to knock him down with every step taken across that minefield. Desire for rest is great, but duty pulls him back to the center of the battlefield. He walks among the ruins, a specter of vengeance who no longer knows the meaning of the word fear. Giant stone monsters emerge from the ground, blocking his path with massive bodies and fists of raw rock. Sung-bin grins wildly, seeing that fighting is the only thing that truly makes sense now. He challenges the entire horde, watching his mana levels rise as he prepares for the next necessary massacre. Blue creatures leap at him, but are cut in half before they even touch the blood-soaked, filthy ground. The hero moves like lightning, leaving only trails of light and destruction wherever his feet pass. Dragons spit fire from above, trying to turn the battlefield into a fiery furnace of death for Sung-bin. He dodges the flames with supernatural agility, climbing the debris to reach his winged enemies in the sky. A flash of mana blinds everyone as he unleashes a powerful blow that cracks the very firmament. He smashes a monster's head against the asphalt, feeling the vibration of the impact run through his entire arm. More creatures emerge from nowhere, but he no longer cares about quantity, only about ultimate victory. The hero is covered in dust and blood, a living monument to human resistance against absolute annihilation. He kicks the remains of an enemy aside and continues to advance, unstoppable like a force of nature. His breathing is heavy, but his heart beats to the rhythm of a war drum that refuses to stop. Fafnir's voice echoes again, recognizing the worth of this human who refuses to die like the others. A colossal hand descends from the clouds, trying to crush the hero as if he were merely an annoying insect. Sung-bin stands the impact with his blade, the ground beneath his feet giving way as he resists the pressure. The monster admits that his strength is something worthy of being consumed by a superior being like himself. The hero stares the giant in the eyes, not lowering his guard for a single second in the face of such death. Fafnir declares his name with a thunder that echoes for miles, sealing the beginning of the most important duel. He says that Sung-bin has the right to become part of his eternal grandeur through death. The villain promises that all that strength will be his as soon as the hero's body touches the ground. A burst of purple energy consumes everything, transforming the landscape into a desert of ash and silent death. The warrior coughs violently, his lungs burning as he tries to rise amidst so much debris. He stumbles, vision blurred by the blood streaming from his forehead, but his hand still grips his weapon firmly. He looks up at the dark sky and asks if it was all in vain, if this is the end. The echo of his mother returns like poison, calling his efforts a tasteless joke. Around him, only the silence of the dead and the remains of a civilization he swore to protect. Monsters fly victorious over the ruins, celebrating the fall of humanity's last bastion of hope. Sung-bin's face is a mask of despair and contained fury, watching the world burn in purple flames. He admits to himself that he failed, that no one was left alive to witness his final struggle here. Fafnir ridicules the title of hero, calling it a blatant lie as he prepares the final mercy blow. At rock bottom, he feels like nothing, just a grain of sand being swallowed by the storm. But a voice calls him back, a human, irritating voice that breaks the cycle of nightmares. An eye opens, revealing the dilated pupil of one who has just returned from a journey through hell. Kim Soohyun wakes up again on the hot asphalt of his current reality, surrounded by the faces of school bullies. They shout his name, asking why he fainted like a coward in the middle of their daily brawl. His gaze is deep, carrying centuries of pain that these boys cannot even begin to imagine now. They are startled when he sits up straight like a ghost. his expression too cold for a teenager. Soohyun says nothing, merely observing the world around him with a palpable and very dangerous strangeness. He looks at his small hands, missing the weight of the sword and armor that defined him. He stands up slowly, each movement precise and calculated like that of an elite predator hunting. Jang-hyuk starts provoking again, unaware that he is playing with fire near a ready powder keg. The bully thinks he's in control, but the atmosphere has changed and the air seems to have grown too heavy. He laughs at the nonsensical words Soohyun mumbled in his sleep, telling him to take his beating like a good little dog. The hero questions if they are real, a genuine doubt from someone who lived years in a constant nightmare. Jang-hyuk attacks in a rage, but Soohyun dodges with such fluid motion it's as if he predicted the future. He seizes the aggressor's wrist with a force that makes the bully's bones nearly crack with pain. The shock in Jang-hyuk's eyes is palpable. He'd never seen such strength in that skinny, quiet kid. With a swift, dry blow, Soohyun knocks down the gang leader, leaving him sprawled on the cold schoolyard ground. He gazes at the others with an emptiness in his eyes that freezes everyone in place, leaving them speechless. The gang retreats, fear now overriding any desire for a fight or humiliation they had before he woke up. Soohyun offers an ironic apology, claiming his body acted on its own, leaving everyone even more bewildered. They try to threaten him, but police sirens interrupt the scene, forcing the cowards to flee, running for their lives. Jang-hyuk shouts that he'll pay dearly, but his voice trembles, and he doesn't look back as he runs. Soohyun stands there, watching the dust settle, sensing that his life has just irreversibly changed. He repeats his current name, but in his mind, he still feels like the warrior Kim Sung-bin. A wave of exhaustion washes over him as he tries to separate what is dream from what is reality. He walks alone through the wreckage of the construction site, a hero without a war and a student without peace of mind. He picks up the old phone and sees his face on the screen, an image that seems not to belong to him. He complains about the old phone, searching for some sign that the modern world still makes any real sense. His gaze fixates on something distant, feeling that past and future are colliding within him today. He whispers a question to the wind, but knows the answer will come with blood and many future battles. It all began with the outbreak phenomenon, which brought monsters and shattered the peace humanity knew. Safety was trampled, and the world we knew turned into a brutal survival field for all living beings. But some received powers to fight, special beings who became known as the Awakened, the only possible salvation. Soohyun narrates that he was one of these chosen ones, fighting in the shadows to keep what remained of hope alive. He sits in a cold room, the burden of being the strongest crushing his young, weary shoulders. He declares with an icy voice that he wasn't just one of them, but indeed the strongest awakened of all. The detective in front of him loses patience and demands to know the name of the boy who caused such a commotion. He takes a deep breath and responds firmly, making it clear that Kim Soohyun is the name everyone will hear. The police demand to know his age and rapid answers, oblivious that they now have a legend before them. Soohyun looks around, sensing that the police station environment is too peaceful to be real. He focuses on the calendar, and it finally clicks. He is in 2022. By his logic, the world should be in 42, 20 years in the future. He improvises an age to appear like a normal student and says he is 19 years old. The detective finds it absurd that the boy doesn't even know his home address. Soohyun ignores the lecture and thinks about the fight against Fafnir, where he swore he had died. Images of a colossal monster devastating everything still burn in the former hero's mind. The trail of destruction from that war now seems like a distant nightmare under the shining sun. He clenches his own wrist hard to feel the pain and prove it's not a dream. Doubt consumes him as he searches for his original warrior body, the legendary Kim Sung-in. The young man wonders what he must do to regain the strength he once possessed. The officer continues to complain, unaware he's speaking to the soul of the future's greatest awakened being. The man announces that his mother is arriving to pick him up and end this commotion. He receives a warning to stay away from abandoned constructions because of rumors about monsters. Suddenly, a woman enters the room, her eyes full of concern, and calls him by name. She rushes towards him, distraught at seeing the injuries on her son's face. "Why are you here? What did they do to you?" The woman touches his face with a tenderness Soohyun hadn't felt in decades. He stands paralyzed, trying to accept that this woman is now his mother in this new life. The sun begins to set between the city buildings, painting the sky a heavy orange. Walking home, he tries to disguise his confusion about the way and social norms. His mother finds his formal way of speaking strange, something quite uncommon. He thinks about apologizing for all the trouble he caused, but the words catch in his throat. She takes out a handkerchief to wipe away the dried blood, caring for him as if he were crystal. His mother mentions that the school bullies must have been at it again, attacking the poor boy. She asks him to tell her everything if it happens again, so she can intervene. Soohyun feels a jolt, realizing that in this reality, he was a constant victim of bullying. Silence falls over them as they cross a strangely empty and somber park. He stops walking and looks around, feeling that something is terribly wrong with the environment. The park is deserted, devoid of the usual sounds of children or people enjoying the late afternoon. His survival instinct screams in his head, warning him that danger is already close. A monstrous claw scrapes the ground, revealing a lethal presence hidden among the park's bushes. A beast with sharp teeth emerges from the shadows, snarling and ready for a deadly attack. His mother calls him to keep moving, oblivious to the monster lurking right behind them. Soohyun hears the low growl and feels the murderous pressure emanating from that blood-hungry creature. In a swift movement, the beast lunges, claws ready to tear through anything in its path. The wolf leaps, a mass of muscle and fury that doesn't belong in the human world. Soohyun recognizes the beast, and genuine fear flashes in his eyes for a brief instant. School supplies tumble to the ground as the world seems to stop before the bloodthirsty monster. He places himself in front of his mother, shielding her from the initial pounce of that creature of darkness. The young man realizes it's no ordinary animal, and the tension escalates to its peak. He identifies the enemy as a werewolf, an elite creature from the initial outbreaks. Soohyun now understands what the police officer meant by the dangerous rumors at the construction site. Flashbacks of monster armies invading cities flash like lightning through his weary mind. Two wolves surround the duo, showing that the hunt is only just beginning for the predators. He needs a weapon fast, anything that can wound that hardened hide. His eyes desperately search for something he can use to balance this life-or-death struggle. His mother panics upon seeing the monster that the news swore had been eliminated. Soohyun decides that a low-level wolf shouldn't be a match, even in this frail body. He charges at the beast, using the agility that remains from his experienced warrior's soul. The blow is struck with precision, but his current body can't match the speed of his mind. The wolf dodges and counterattacks with a violence that nearly throws him backward entirely. The creature roars, furious at being challenged by a human who seems so weak. Soohyun realizes he miscalculated the strength of his new body, and the danger escalates. He tries to hold the beast back, but feels his muscles protest against the extreme physical exertion. The improvised blade merely scratches the creature, and he curses the lack of power in his blow. If he were in his original body, the monster would already be dead in a single move. Another wolf appears to attack from the flank, leaving Soohyun in a situation of complete encirclement. He finds himself forced to fight on two fronts while trying to keep his mother safe. The fight descends into a chaotic blur of claws and desperate dodges in the middle of the sunny park. Soohyun focuses all his murderous intent to try and intimidate the beasts, but they sense his weakness. He's gasping for breath, realizing this body's stamina is pathetic compared to the legend he once was. The soul of the strongest awakened refuses to accept defeat at the hands of mere beginner wolves. We return to the police station scene, where the officer asks the boy's name once more. He reaffirms his identity as Kim Soohyun, keeping his hero past hidden for now. The police officers continue to rush the young man, unaware they are dealing with a temporal entity. Soohyun keeps his gaze low, processing the memories that continue to collide in his agitated mind. The year 2022 resonates as a golden opportunity to change everything. If he has a 20-year head start, he can prevent the end of the world he himself lived through. He confirms his age of 19, trying to adapt to the role of a mere student. The detective suspects everything, finding it impossible for a young man not to know where he lives or who he is. Soohyun thinks about the upcoming school final exams, a bizarre contrast to the end of the world. He imagines the fight against Fafnir, and how every blow from that beast was a death sentence. The chaos of the future war is an open wound he carries wherever he goes. He denies feelings of fear, asserting to himself that those emotions are fake and useless. The young man wonders where his sung-in body is, the killing machine he built. He seeks a path to reclaim his power and once again become humanity's pillar. Many mysteries hang in the air, and he feels time is running out for his plans. The police officer brings up his mother again, acting as if Soohyun is just a lost child. The warning about the construction site echoes once more, now with the context that monsters have already appeared. Soohyun's mother bursts onto the scene again, screaming her son's name with all her might. She goes into shock upon seeing the deplorable state of her boy's face in the cold police station. The woman asks if he's okay, but her voice trembles with visceral, genuine fear. Soohyun stares at her, internally questioning if this blood connection is genuine in this new timeline. The sun sets and the light vanishes, giving way to a darkness that favors hidden predators. He admits he doesn't know their new address, and his mother attributes it to the stress of his studies. She notices the change in his vocabulary, and Soohyun tries to cover it with a nervous, fake laugh. He considers apologizing, but the pride of an elite warrior makes it hard to utter. Her hand, holding a handkerchief, reaches out to tend to wounds he barely feels anymore. She laments the bullying he's suffered, wondering when those cruel children will finally stop hitting him. The promise that she won't let it slide next time warms something cold in his chest. She squeezes Soohyun's hand tightly, showing she's willing to fight for her son. He remains silent, feeling the weight of this protection he never asked for, but now receives. Her call pulls him from his dark thoughts as they walk through the deserted park. He comments that no one is in the park, and the atmosphere thickens like a heavy fog. The quietness of the place is the classic sign that a dominant predator has cleared the area of humans. A monstrous paw emerges in the dim light, confirming they are no longer alone. The beast's deep growl echoes, making the hairs on Soohyun's arm stand on end. His mother urges him to hurry, but he's already realized that escape is no longer an option. He hesitates for a second, feeling the murderous intent overflowing from the bushes ahead. The beasts appear in full, surrounding their path and cutting off any chance of a safe exit. The wolf stares at the young man with red eyes, thirsty for the flesh of whoever invaded its territory. Soohyun feigns surprise at seeing the beast, trying to maintain the disguise of a scared, ordinary student. Dust rises, and tension explodes as the first creature decides to leap for the final attack. The young man positions himself, ready to defend the only person who seems to care about him now. He knows this is no animal of nature. It's an abomination born of the system. The warwolf growls, a creature made only for combat and unrestrained destruction. Soohyun now understands the real danger the police officer mentioned about the attacks at the nearby construction site. He visualizes the future of monster hordes and knows he needs to act immediately to survive. Two wolves prepare for a simultaneous pounce, coordinating their attack with malignant intelligence. The biggest problem is the lack of weapons, and he scans the environment for something to use in combat. He spots an old umbrella in a trash can and decides it will be his improvised sword. His mother screams in terror at seeing the monsters, remembering the news had said they were safe. Soohyun believes that even with a weak body, his technique will be enough to defeat one wolf. The beast attacks with absurd speed, aiming directly for the young warrior's neck. He dodges by mere millimeters and strikes with the umbrella, trying to hit a vital spot on the beast. The wolf recoils, surprised by the aggressive reaction of this human who seemed like too easy a prey. Another leap occurs, and the fight intensifies, transforming the calm park into a battlefield. Soohyun realizes the impact wasn't strong enough to take down the elite monster. The wolf's claws tear through the air, forcing the young man to use the umbrella solely for defense. He curses his own weakness, realizing the attack was too shallow to cause real damage. Without real power, he is just an ordinary boy trying to fight a killing machine. The second wolf takes advantage of the opening to attack, leaving Soohyun no room to maneuver in combat. Despair emerges as he realizes yet another enemy is joining the fray to finish them off. He tries to shield his mother while fending off the brutal onslaughts of the two bloodthirsty creatures. Soohyun feels cold sweat trickle down as his body begins to fail under the superhuman effort. His mother suddenly lunges in front of one of the wolves, trying to save her son from its pounce. Shock contorts Soohyun's face as he witnesses the reckless sacrifice of that courageous woman. He screams for her, unable to believe she risked her life to protect him from a monster. The wolf bites the woman's shoulder, throwing her to the ground with a violence that shatters the silence. He wonders why she would do something so dangerous for someone she barely knows now. Rage begins to boil in Soohyun's blood, awakening the dormant hero that lives within him. He rushes to her as the wolves prepare for their final feast under the pale moonlight. The young man scolds his mother for the risk, but she merely smiles weakly as she bleeds on the ground. She says she's fine and begs her son to flee and save his own life. Soohyun sees her blood, and something inside him irrevocably breaks in that instant of pain. He slowly rises, hands trembling not from fear, but from a pure, overwhelming hatred. The silence he emits is more dangerous than any war cry he has ever uttered. The wolves hesitate, sensing that the human before them has changed drastically and terrifyingly. He stares at the creature with eyes that gleam with a glacial promise of death and destruction. Soohyun asks if the monster desires to die, his voice emerging like a whisper from hell. The young man launches his final attack, ignoring the pain in his own body to destroy the beasts. He strikes with all that's left, but his body fails at the last second and he collapses, exhausted. The fight ends with the monsters fleeing, but Soohyun collapses to the ground beside his injured mother. He looks at his own hands, tasting the bitter flavor of defeat for being so powerless now. The warrior curses this useless body that can't even finish a low-level fight. With effort, he carries his mother home, promising that things will change soon. The pain in his back screams, reminding him that he is still just a fragile, broken human. He stops halfway, realizing with irony that he doesn't even know where his own house is. The night advances, and the deserted streets seem to mock the precarious situation of the powerless hero. They arrive at the building, and he feels the relief of finally exiting the immediate danger zone. Soohyun takes a deep breath, thankful for having found the address in his mother's wallet, dropped on the sofa. He watches her rest, feeling a heavy guilt for not having been strong enough to prevent this. Her words about protecting him continue echoing in his mind, piercing his pride as a solitary warrior. He wonders how she had the courage to face a monster with only her own fragile body. The young man realizes that her protection was the trigger he needed to finally awaken. Under his hood, Soohyun's face turns grim, determined to never be a victim again. He questions why he was reborn in such a pathetic and useless state for combat. His hands clench into fists, feeling the fragility of every bone and muscle in this student's body. The rage of being trapped in this limited form consumes him, but he forces his mind to calm. Memories of his past glory as Soohyun flash by, a reminder of what he must reclaim. He takes a deep breath, trying to access the system interface that governed the world of the awakened. Static noises erupt in his mind as he tries to force open the Tower of Trials. He commands his thoughts to become objectives to get what he desires from the ancient system. A message appears from nowhere, confirming that the user has finally been recognized by the Eternal Tower. The system's approval is complete, opening doors that no other common human can see now. Kim Soohyun's name shines in the interface, and the gate to the abyss begins to open. He watches the dimensional rift appear in his room, exuding an energy too dark and powerful. The fact that the door opened proves he possesses innate talent to be an awakened one again. He realizes he's entering the abyss much earlier than in his previous life of battles. Soohyun decides there's no more time to hesitate if he wants to protect what remains now. A digital voice welcomes him to the Tower of Trials, the place where legends are born or die trying. The abyss is known as the bottomless pit from which no one returns without deep scars on their soul. Overcoming the first floor is the only way to be officially recognized as an elite awakened. The system prompts him to choose the initial difficulty level for his first major real test. Without a second thought, he selects the maximum difficulty among the 10 options available for the challenge, level 10. The higher the floor level, the more lethal and cruel the enemies that will emerge to kill him. Soohyun smirks, knowing that great risks bring legendary rewards to those who dare defy fate. He steps onto the first floor of the Tower of Trials, feeling the weight of his decision. The air crackles as the maximum difficulty is activated for the start of the test. He lets out a nervous chuckle, wondering if he bit off more than he could chew, as his previous maximum was level 8. But the doubt quickly fades, and he focuses on what needs to be done now. If he repeats his old steps, his fate will be the same disaster as always. A blue screen floats, asking him to choose his combat weapon. Shadows shift around him, and strange monsters begin to emerge from the darkness. Soohyun clenches his fist tightly and decides that this time it will be different. A few hours pass, and the scene shifts to the deserted city streets. A desperate scream tears through the silence of the cold night. A young man runs in terror, begging for help. "Save me, please!" Two monstrous wolves surround the young man, who collapses to the ground with no escape. He screams for anyone who can hear, as the beasts bare their fangs. Death seems certain for the boy who cannot defend himself. Suddenly, Soohyun emerges from the shadows with an icy gaze and says, "Finally found it." He advances with a speed his current body can barely withstand. The impact is precise, and he strikes the monster before it can attack the young man. His hands move with the precision of a warrior who has lived 1,000 battles. He spins in the air, ignoring the pain that shoots up his back. The wolves roar, but Soohyun feels not a shred of fear now. The beast lunges, but finds only empty air. He counterattacks with a force that shatters the ground beneath his feet. The combat is swift and brutal, as it should be at level 10. Soohyun stares at the wounded wolf and asks if it thought it would walk away alive. The monster hesitates, but the hero merely whispers, "Don't worry." The glint of his weapon slices through the air in a perfect, deadly arc. He finishes off the beast and declares that the others will soon follow the same path. The system interface flashes. Kim Soohyun, awakened on the maximum difficulty of the first floor. The scene cuts to a bitter memory of him confronting a shadow wolf. His face is marked by sweat and the tension of battle. He screams for his mother, desperate as he sees her stepping into the middle of the fight. She is struck and falls violently to the ground before his eyes. Soohyun can't believe she sacrificed herself to keep him safe. He drags himself towards her as the monster continues to lurk. His scream echoes through the park, a cry of pure agony. He asks why she did it, but she merely whispers his name. With a faint voice, she says it's all right and that he should run. She insists that he save himself first, without caring for her own life. Soohyun falls silent, feeling the world crumble around him. His gaze shifts, losing the innocent sparkle of an ordinary student. The wolves advance again, sensing the smell of blood and fear. Soohyun lifts his head and focuses on the beast that dared to touch his mother. He stares at the monster and asks, "Do you want to die that badly?" Rage boils in his veins, and he lunges forward with everything he has. He screams that he won't let anyone escape alive this time. The combat ends, and he stands there, amidst the bodies of the beasts. The silence that follows is heavy, charged with a newfound resolve. He curses his own body, frustrated by its weakness, barely able to pursue his foe. Soohyun carries his mother in his arms, deciding they need to go home. A sharp pain tears through his back, reminding him of the wounds he'd already endured. He stops mid-stride, realizing with a bitter irony, "Wait, where is our house?" The sky darkens, and the city feels like a strange labyrinth to the regressor hero. They walk through the deserted streets until they finally find the right building. He lays his mother on the bed, breathing a sigh of relief for finding the address in her wallet. Soohyun watches her sleep, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Even in her sleep, she whispers for him to run, proving her love knows no bounds. He stares at her, feeling a mix of guilt and an absurd urge to become strong. Soohyun wonders why she would throw herself in front of a monster for him. He realizes that the Kim Soohyun of this world was just a protected boy. Rage flares within him again as he looks at his own trembling hands. He despises this fragile body that couldn't even handle a handful of wolves. He questions if he was reborn in this useless state merely to suffer again. The image of his past glory as a legendary warrior flashes in his mind. He needs to become that man again, no matter the price he has to pay. Energy crackles around him as he tries to access the system. Soohyun calms himself and mentally requests access to the Tower of Trials. The system processes the request and confirms that the user has been successfully recognized. The approval is complete, and the doors of destiny begin to open for him. The abyssal portal appears right in the middle of the room, exuding an ancient power. He stares at the dimensional rift, knowing the path ahead will be cruel. The fact that the portal opened proves he still possesses the talent of an awakened. He realizes he's entering the tower much earlier than in the original timeline. Soohyun decides there's no more time to hesitate and takes the first step. A welcome message appears, inviting him to the test that defines heroes. The Tower of Trials is a place where many enter, but few manage to leave whole. Overcoming the first floor is the certificate that separates common humans from the awakened. He prepares himself, knowing that the next few minutes will decide his entire future. The system asks him to choose the difficulty, and he selects level 10 without blinking. The max level alert flashes, warning him that the enemies will be far more lethal. It's the rule of high risk and high reward that governs this entire distorted world. He officially enters the trial grounds of the tower's first floor. The scenery shifts, and the challenge is set to the highest difficulty available. Soohyun laughs at his own audacity, remembering his old record was only level 8, but he knows he needs this power if he wants to change the course of history. The fear of failing again is what pushes him to face the impossible. The weapon selection interface appears, offering various options for combat. He looks at the options, but he already knows exactly what he needs to win. Soohyun chooses his weapon and feels the familiar weight of metal in his hand. A few hours pass, and the trial continues at a frantic pace of death. A survivor's scream echoes, breaking Soohyun's concentration for a second. A man pleads for help as an enormous wolf prepares to pounce. Panic grips the area, and the beasts advance without any mercy. The man screams desperately, but no one seems to come to his rescue in that arena. Wolf's claws cut through the air, ready to tear into the victim's flesh. But Soohyun appears and says, "I finally found you." He moves like a blur, covering the distance in the blink of an eye. His attack is devastating, sending the beast flying with a single blow. He wields his umbrella as if it were a legendary sword, striking fear into the survivor. Soohyun wastes no time, already bracing for the next approaching enemy. The wolves encircle the young man, but he maintains the absolute calm of a true master. One of them leaps, but Soohyun dodges with an elegance that seems supernatural. He counterattacks with surgical precision, striking the monster's vital points. The wolf falls dead at his feet as he wipes sweat from his brow. He confronts the last one, asking if it truly believed it could win. The beast snarls, but Soohyun merely tells it not to worry about the pain. A blue flash explodes as he delivers the final, merciful blow. He warns that the other beasts will soon follow the same grim fate. Kim Soohyun is officially recognized as the victor of the first floor's 10th level. Meanwhile, on TV, a journalist explains the bizarre changes sweeping the world. He speaks of the difference between dungeons and the mysterious Tower of Trials. The world is in a panic over the phenomenon of monsters appearing in common reality. In the tower's streets, the awakened buzz about the new ranking update. A new name has appeared at the top, and no one has any idea who this newcomer is. Someone managed 2,230 points, leaving second place in the dust. Everyone wonders who the monster is that achieved this unbelievable feat today. The name Kim Soohyun now echoes through the halls of the abyss like a legend. Soohyun walks through the tower village and sighs, feeling a longing for this place. He looks around with the satisfaction of one who knows the plan is working. A flying monster is shot down with a crash, showing that danger is constant. The creature's body falls heavily to the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. The test completion message shines before Soohyun's weary eyes. He reflects that, without his past memories, he never would have survived level 10. Luckily, his combat senses are returning faster than he expected. He feels that if he continues at this pace, he can reach the top in record time. Soohyun puts away his weapon, ready to reap the fruits of his brutal effort. The reward list appears, and the achievement points begin to climb endlessly. Even for level 10, these rewards are absurd and will accelerate his evolution. He takes a deep breath, feeling power flow through his newly strengthened body. With over 2,000 points, he has enough to buy anything. Soohyun decides it's time to spend his fortune and go shopping at the store. He walks confidently through the medieval village, attracting curious glances from others. The shop bell rings, and he enters an establishment filled with magical items. A long-haired elf greets him with a radiant smile. "Welcome!" Soohyun approaches the counter, unimpressed by the seller's exotic look. She comments that he looks like a rookie who just arrived at the tower today. Mellie, the merchant, offers to help recommend the best items for a beginner. He knows she tries to charm customers into spending more, so he cuts to the chase. Straight to the point, he states he wants the leap skill and the exceedingly rare transformation. Mellie is shocked, asking if he can actually afford those exorbitant prices. Soohyun merely smirks, relishing this moment of superiority over the merchant. He transfers 1,150 points, leaving the elf utterly dumbfounded. She screams in disbelief. What kind of cheat did you use to get so many points? Mellie insists that no one has ever managed 1,000 points coming out of the first floor before. Soohyun simply replies that he's a normal customer and that payment has been made. He exits the shop as the bell rings once more, leaving the elf behind. Outside, he decides to check what else he needs for his journey of ascent. He opens his dimensional inventory, a magic pouch holding all his precious items. Soohyun checks for enough swords, spears, medicine, and food for the upcoming floors. He uses appraisal on the skill books he just bought from the store. The system explains that each skill has its own power level and proficiency. Transformation is one of the rare growth skills, becoming stronger with use. But he knows that, beyond that, he now needs a magic power catalyst. The vial contains a purple liquid that promises to permanently increase his basic attributes. The catalyst is essential for anyone wanting to climb the tower without relying solely on levels. Most awakened ignore low-floor shops, but he knows the secrets. This item is a hidden gem, despite its completely horrible and bitter taste. Soohyun is grateful for his memories, as he's the only one who knows these tricks now. Suddenly, he's interrupted by a man who asks for a moment of his time. Soohyun quickly turns around, surprised that someone managed to approach unnoticed. He's annoyed that he didn't sense the stranger's presence for even a second. The man apologizes for the scare and says he didn't mean to appear hostile. When Soohyun takes a good look at his face, shock freezes his movements. A silhouette of a great warrior flashes in our hero's mind at that instant. Soohyun's face turns pale as he recognizes who is standing right in front of him. He whispers the name Choi Hak-joon, unable to believe he appeared so soon. An elder in a suit appears on screen, continuing the explanation about the world of the awakened. He details how the tower and dungeons are changing the global economy forever. Power and glory attract more and more people to the deadly peril of the abyss. The danger of monster outbreaks is real, but the benefits outweigh the fear of death. People keep commenting on the ranking and the mysterious name of Kim Soohyun. Adventurers wonder how someone achieved such a high score so quickly. Over 2,000 points on the first floor is something that defies all known logic. The world wants to know who this new genius is, who is dominating the Tower of Trials. The burning question is, where did this Kim Soohyun come from? The hero walks through the village, knowing that his journey of vengeance is just beginning. His gaze is firm and determined, ready to face any challenge that comes next. The abyss is vast, and each floor holds a new world, a different climate, and fatal dangers. The only common factor among these climatic and cultural worlds is the need to overcome a brutal trial to ascend. Suddenly, a deafening impact makes the ground tremble as a flying beast is crushed against the arena floor. The monster's body collapses lifelessly, and the silence of victory spreads across the scene, bathed in fresh blood. The system screen shines, confirming that the first floor trial was completed with absolute perfection by our hero. He feels his battle instincts returning with full force, awakening the veteran within him. Soohyun tightens his grip on the sword, determined to stop being prey and become the predator. The profits are absurd, and he notices that, on difficulty level 10, his attributes grow much faster than before. He pauses to analyze the situation, aware that every decision now will dictate his success on the upper floors. With over 2,000 achievement points, he has already accumulated enough to secure an unfair advantage against any opponent. The next step is to invest this fortune in equipment and skills that no one else dares to dream of possessing right now. Soohyun walks through the streets of the medieval village with the confidence of someone who knows every secret hidden in these ancient stones. The shop bell rings softly as he enters an establishment that holds treasures beyond human imagination. "Oh dear, welcome!" exclaims the saleswoman, ready to hook another unsuspecting customer with her charm. She glides from behind the counter with elegance, observing the young man who just crossed the threshold of her shop. "You look like a boy who just ascended today, don't you?" she asks, trying to read Soohyun's intentions. The dark elf Mellie, skill merchant, offers personalized recommendations while displaying a smile that hides sharp dealer's teeth. Soohyun ignores her seductive tactics and gets straight to the point. "I need the jump skill." He has no time. He also demands the transformation skill, leaving Veli agape at the precision of such a young novice's requests. But can you pay for them? Jump costs 150, and transformation goes for 1,000 points, she challenges. A smirk plays on Soohyun's lips, the kind of smile that foreshadows a world-shattering revelation. He transfers the payment without a moment's hesitation, and the system confirms the transaction of 1,150 achievement points. What is this? What kind of trick did you use to get so many points now? Veli screams, completely losing her composure. She asserts that no one has ever earned more than 1,000 points on the first floor and questions if he truly is a beginner. Of course, I'm just a normal customer who just ascended, he replies, maintaining absolute calm in the face of her astonishment. The bell chimes again as he exits, leaving the dark elf to process the shock of having encountered a true monster. Outside, the streets remain bustling, but Soohyun focuses on what truly matters for his survival in the next stage. He opens his dimensional bag, the legendary inventory, checking if all his resources are properly organized and secure. Swords, spears, medicines, and food. He reviews each item to ensure nothing has been forgotten before the next great battle. System performs item evaluation, and blue windows float in the air, detailing the power of his new acquisitions. Soohyun knows that beyond skills, the use of a magic power catalyst is the key to true evolution. The vial contains a purple liquid that promises to permanently increase his mana rank according to his level. This catalyst is a rare gem that most overlook, focusing only on glittering items from much higher floors. While everyone races to the top, he exploits the hidden treasures of the lower floors to build an indestructible foundation. He drinks the potion despite its horrible bitter taste, feeling the power surge through his veins like a river of fire. Soohyun is grateful for his memories, as he is the only one in the world who knows these shortcuts to absolute power. Excuse me, could you spare a minute of your time? A voice emerges from the shadows behind him. Soohyun turns with a swift reflex, surprised he hadn't sensed the presence of someone approaching so stealthily. He inwardly curses himself for letting his guard down, wondering who could possibly conceal their aura so perfectly. "Oh, did I scare you? It wasn't my intention to be hostile," says the red-haired man with a friendly, relaxed smile. But when Soohyun gets a good look at his face, shock freezes his movements, and the air instantly turns cold. A terrifying image flashes in his mind, a merciless warrior standing atop a pile of corpses after a massacre. Memories of the future bubble up, revealing the face of a man who would become one of the tower's greatest villains. Choi Hak-joon? He whispers the name, disbelieving that he encountered this legendary and dangerous figure so early. Fate seems to be playing dice with Soohyun, placing crucial pieces on his board before the game even heats up. Hak-joon is the future perpetrator of one of history's greatest guild massacres, a monster in human form. Soohyun tries to mask his reaction, but cold sweat trickles down as he stares at the potential killer standing before him. The redhead notices his intense gaze and asks if there's something wrong with his face, maintaining a strangely innocent demeanor. Soohyun recomposes himself and says he was merely surprised, trying to normalize the conversation so as not to raise suspicions about his secrets. He notes that, in the past, Hak-joon did not possess the murderous aura that would make him famous and feared by all in the future. Hak-joon reveals he followed him from the shop and was impressed by Soohyun's eye for choosing rare equipment. The hero is alarmed to realize he was followed without noticing, proving that Hak-joon already possesses high-level skills. The red-haired man makes a mystery of it, approaching with a look that blends curiosity with a proposal that could change everything. Soohyun's heart races, and he braces for the worst, ready to draw his weapon at the slightest sign of attack. "Do you want to form a party with me?" Hak-joon proposes, leaving Soohyun utterly speechless at the unexpected invitation. The scene shifts, and the system announces that he has escaped with the Charles clan's treasure, incurring the wrath of the monsters. A lizard man snarls ferociously, sniffing the air in search of the invader, who dared to steal the tribe's sacred relic. The horde of lizard men spreads through the tropical forest, using their hunter instincts to track the hero's every step. Soohyun takes a deep breath amidst the shadows of the trees, observing the movements of the enemies mercilessly surrounding his current position. He realizes that the Charles clan specializes in tracking, and escaping them will be an almost impossible task in this jungle. The system demands he escape, but Soohyun feels that the developers of this trial are asking too much of a player. He questions the absurd difficulty level of this mission, holding the necklace that gleams with a mysterious, pulsating energy. The treasure doesn't seem to offer any immediate benefits, serving only as a burden he must protect at all costs. Soohyun ponders the best method for survival, calculating the chances of a successful escape against the monsters. A sudden idea sparks in his mind, and his eyes gleam with a fierce determination that will change the course of the hunt. The lizard man continues sniffing, unaware that the target he seeks has stopped fleeing and decided to turn the tables. Soohyun leaps from the trees like lightning, catching the first scout by surprise before he can emit any signal. The movement is fluid and lethal, showing that intense training and past memories are worth every second. The blade cuts through the air with surgical precision, silencing the monster before its feet even touch the forest floor. He reflects on the conditions for survival in the forest and reaches a conclusion that only a madman would accept. To survive means to eliminate everything in this forest, he declares, launching a full-scale assault on the tribe. The green blood of the lizard men gushes as Soohyun tears through enemy ranks like a steel gale of total destruction. The system confirms achievement points gained with each kill, fueling the hero's power amidst the chaos. He activates the leap skill, crossing the battlefield mid-air to decapitate the next enemy without any warning. He admits that fighting large groups is exhausting and that perhaps a party would have made things easier at this critical moment. A flashback shows a brown-haired man commenting on the absurd difficulty of recruiting people for level 8. Soohyun asks why he specifically wants to face level 8, trying to understand the motivations of the other tower players. The man hesitates for a moment, hiding secrets that seem to weigh as much as the weapons he carries on his back. Sorry, but level 8 is too low for my ultimate goal. Soohyun coldly ends the conversation. Back in the present, he throws himself back into combat, feeling the adrenaline burn as he faces the jungle beasts. Colossal creatures roar in fury, but Soohyun moves among them with an agility that defies the tower's very gravity. The ground shakes and trees splinter as the trial's boss finally makes its triumphant entrance onto the battlefield. Soohyun smiles upon seeing the unique reward, confirming that hunting the monsters was a much better choice than just fleeing. He checks his stats and notices his attributes are rising at a speed that surpasses any record from his previous life. The transformation skill is activated, allowing him to mimic the physical capabilities of his targets to balance combat against beasts. He utilizes Berserker, the clan leader's unique skill, strengthening his body proportionally to the exhaustion he feels at the moment. The fight was exhausting, but the benefits reaped ensure he continues to grow at an unstoppable pace towards the absolute top. Fatigue reaches critical levels, but the satisfaction on Soohyun's face shows that the price paid was worth every drop of sweat. He decides to rest only after leaving the danger zone, keeping his guard high even exhausted after the brutal combat. The world around him begins to fade as the system processes the completion of another challenging stage of the giant tower. The light of transition envelops the hero, transporting him away from the blood and chaos of the abyssal lizardman forest. Soohyun opens his eyes and finds himself back in an environment that now feels strangely normal and too peaceful. The aroma of homemade food fills the air, bringing a sense of comfort he had almost forgotten amidst the deadly battles. "I'm sorry this is all I can do, my son. You must be exhausted from all that studying," says his mother. Soohyun looks at her with sadness, noticing that she went to work despite being injured and exhausted the day before for him. "I'm fine. What's preparing a meal for my dear son?" She smiles with a sweetness that hurts. He remains silent, feeling the weight of her sacrifice, as he secretly fights in a world of death and blood. Guilt and determination mix in his chest, strengthening his promise to give her a dignified and safe life. The two share a moment of ephemeral peace in the simple kitchen, a brutal contrast to the violence he just experienced. He attacks the food with ravenous hunger, feeling that each spoonful restores a bit of the soul the tower tries to steal. Soohyun knows this normality is fragile and that he needs to grow stronger to protect these simple moments of happiness. He chews in silence, focused on regaining his energy for the challenges that will surely come next in his epic journey. Every mouthful of rice seems a more valuable treasure than any magical item he acquired inside the abyss. His mother watches with surprise how quickly he eats, happy to see her son regaining his appetite and strength. "It seems you were very hungry," she comments, laughing softly as she serves another generous portion of food. Soohyun finishes his meal and retreats to his room, where the reality of the game once again knocks on the door of his mind. He curses under his breath upon seeing the system notifications, realizing his high score caused an unwanted stir. The online forum is exploding with questions about who Kim Soohyun is, and how someone achieved 2,000 points so quickly. The red-haired warrior from the village appears again in his memories, wielding his giant sword with an ease that frightens anyone. A purple-haired man observes from the shadows, representing the hidden threats now seeking the whereabouts of the new #1 ranker. Hak-joon remains a mystery, a potential ally who could become the worst enemy if things go the wrong way. "Is there something on my face? You're staring too much," says Hak-joon, flashing back to the moment they first met in the village. Soohyun reaffirms he was just surprised, and tries to figure out what the future executioner wants with him at this point in the story. The redhead confesses he followed him because of his good eye for equipment, seeking someone capable of surviving by his side. The hero feels cornered, hating the fact that his competence attracted the attention of someone so dangerous and unstable in the future. Hak-joon smiles darkly, revealing he has a plan and needs a partner of equal caliber to execute it successfully. Soohyun swallows hard, feeling like he's treading on eggshells as he decides whether to accept or refuse the future assassin's offer. The party proposal is made again, and the hero finds himself in a moral dilemma that could define the fate of many. Returning to the forest combat, the lizardmen continue their relentless pursuit, scenting the trail of blood left by the human invader. The Charles clan's hunting party doesn't give up, showing an animal persistence that tires even the most experienced warrior of the tower. Soohyun takes a deep breath, feeling the sweat sting his eyes as he prepares for yet another round of total annihilation in the jungle. He faces the beasts head-on, determined to show that no tracker is a match for someone who has already lived through the end of everything. The Charles clan is known for leaving no survivors, but they have never faced someone with Kim Soohyun's foresight. He curses the difficulty of the trial, feeling every fiber of his body being tested to the limits of sanity. He seeks the best strategy, knowing that a silly mistake could mean definitive death and the end of his second chance. A glimmer of hope emerges as he identifies a pattern in the monster's attack, preparing a crushing counteroffensive to end the combat. The lizard warrior snarls, unaware that death is coming from above with the speed of a hunting falcon. The hero crashes onto the enemy, transforming the forest into an execution ground where only the strongest will emerge alive. He swings his weapon in a perfect arc, spreading blood and chaos as victory notifications flash non-stop on the screen. The lizard man falls dead, and Soohyun already moves to the next target, giving no time for the enemies to reorganize. He understands that surviving here requires the complete annihilation of any threat that dares to cross his now determined path. The entire horde lunges at him, but the hero merely cracks a savage smile, embracing the necessary carnage for his ascension. Another monster is brought down, and the system rewards the player's bravery with 20 more achievement points for his balance. He moves with deadly grace, proving that individual power can overcome any numerical advantage if used intelligently. Activating the leap again, he becomes a blur in the air, collecting points and lives as he dominates the forest battleground. He reflects that long-term fights favor monsters and that he needs to end this trial as quickly as possible. The brown-haired man reappears in his memory, fearing level 8 and the difficulties that grow with each new floor reached. Soohyun asks if there's a special reason for level 8, trying to extract useful information from this casual yet tense encounter. The stranger looks at the ground, seemingly carrying a deep regret that prevents him from advancing with the necessary confidence in the tower. Level 8 is too low for anyone who wants to reach the top. Soohyun's phrase echoes like a cold ultimatum. He charges into danger, leaving behind the weak who are content with little, while he seeks the power of the gods. The area boss finally emerges, a beast of dark scales exuding an aura of authority and death from every pore. Finally, the master of this forest has appeared, says Soohyun, drawing his main weapon for the final confrontation of this trial. With an explosive leap, he defies gravity and lunges at the beast's neck in a high-risk move. "I'll take down this apex predator right now," he roars, striking with all his accumulated strength. The battle is epic, each blow making the earth crack beneath the feet of the combatants fighting for total supremacy in the abyss. The reward for the second floor is revealed, The Charles clan treasure now belongs to him, capable of healing any severe injury. He admits he didn't expect such a powerful item and that his decision to hunt the boss was the best possible. His attributes glow on the screen, showing that he is becoming something far beyond a common human in record time. Transformation reaches a new level, allowing him to mimic the most complex physical abilities of elite monsters from the current floor. Berserker is now a tool in his arsenal, ensuring he can turn any lost fight with a surge of physical power. He takes a deep breath over the fallen boss's body, feeling that he is getting closer and closer to reaching the level of his past life. Fatigue is high, but determination shines stronger than any tiredness, impelling him to continue his solitary and glorious ascent. The system's light envelops him again, marking the end of another bloody and victorious stage in his quest for revenge. The scenery changes drastically, and the peace of home welcomes him back with the warmth of a never-setting sun. Soohyun looks around, feeling the strangeness of someone who spent hours fighting for his life and is now in absolute safety. The steaming food on the table is an irresistible invitation for the hungry warrior who has forgotten what a peaceful meal is. He thanks his mother, feeling a lump in his throat for not being able to tell her the truth about the world he lives in. He notices the scars on her hands and the weariness on her face, mentally swearing that all this will end very soon. "Don't worry about me, son. Just eat and grow strong for your studies," she says with genuine affection. Soohyun lowers his head, hiding the expression of someone who knows that studying is the least of his real concerns now. He plunges into the meal with a startling urgency, trying to fill the void left by the constant stress of the tower's deadly battles. His mother smiles as she watches him eat, unaware that her son is currently the most talked about and mysterious man on the entire planet. He spoons into the dish forcefully, savoring the taste of homemade food that no magical potion from the tower can imitate. His thoughts fly to the next floors, planning every move to avoid the mistakes that led to his downfall in the distant past. The sound of chewing fills the silent kitchen, a steady rhythm marking the physical recovery of a predator at necessary rest. He finishes the dish and feels vigor return to his body, ready to face any army the abyss throws at him. "Wow, you really needed that, didn't you?" she comments, surprised by the renewed vitality her son shows. Soohyun merely nods, keeping his secrets as he prepares to return to the arena where destiny is decided. Meanwhile, in the digital world, Abyss Online is abuzz with the news that the #1 ranker has finally appeared publicly. Kim Soohyun's name shines in the headlines as the most promising player in history, awakening the greed of guilds and world governments alike. He stares at his computer screen in his room, realizing that his quiet life is now numbered. "Damn it, this is going to be a huge problem," he murmurs, seeing his name discussed by thousands of people around the globe. The forums are filled with doubts and theories about how he scored so many points, calling him either a cheater or a genius sent by the gods. Soohyun clenches his fist tightly, knowing that he is now the target of all the wolves seeking the tower's power. But he is not afraid. He possesses knowledge of the future and the strength of one who has already died once and has no intention of repeating it. Abyss Online continues to update non-stop, transforming the name of a simple young man into the greatest legend the world has ever heard. Kim Soohyun's journey has only just begun, and the entire world is about to discover the true power of the hero of humanity. In his room, the young man stares at the screen with tired eyes and lets out a heavy sigh. "Damn it, this is going to be an annoying problem." Meanwhile, in Gangnam, the imposing Ares Guild building buzzes with rumors about this new genius who appeared out of nowhere. Kwon Jang-hyuk, the red-haired prodigy, looks at his cell phone with disdain and asks, "Is this the guy making headlines?" The guild leader comments that he awakened around the same time as Jang-hyuk and wants to know if they've ever crossed paths before. Jang-hyuk falls silent for a moment, processing the information as a hint of envy begins to surface in his gaze. He leans his head back and replies with indifference, "I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen this guy in the tower." The redhead quickly changes the subject and asks how the attack plan for the 3rd floor of the tower is progressing. He explains that he's focusing on level 8, something far beyond others, but knows that the delay can become irritating. But now, a formidable competitor named Kim Soohyun has appeared to threaten his throne and his absolute prestige. Jang-hyuk admits that he hasn't found anyone capable of accompanying him and decides he will ascend the next floor alone, without any help. The bearded man observes the young man with a serious look, weighing every word and the exaggerated confidence the boy displays. He warns that if there are no candidates, he will find someone himself, and orders Jang-hyuk to focus only on climbing the tower. Silence takes over the room for a second as the tension between the two guild members becomes almost palpable. The veteran stares at the redhead with terrifying intensity and asks if he truly understands the gravity of the current situation in the rankings. He suggests that, if possible, Jang-hyuk should try to bring Kim Soohyun to their side, but the young man merely mutters, "That damn bastard." Walking down the corridor, Kim Soohyun's name doesn't leave Jang-hyuk's mind, acting like a splinter that bothers his ego. He begins to recall a casual encounter he had on the streets, and a terrible doubt starts to consume him. The redhead stops mid-stride, his eyes wide with shock, and thinks aloud. It can't be. Could it have been that guy? He tries to dismiss the thought, saying it would be impossible, and decides that no matter who it is, he will follow his own path. The young man focuses his energy on his own journey, trying to ignore the shadow of the top-ranked player now looming over them all. While the world outside goes crazy, the system notifications confirm that Kim Soohyun cleared the 4th floor with absolute perfection. He advances non-stop, conquering the 5th and 6th floors, accumulating achievement points as he decides to retreat to the countryside. His mother, thinking he merely overexerted himself with studies, smiles kindly and says, "It's okay, you've worked hard, just rest." He leaves home with a backpack on his back, carrying secrets that no ordinary person could bear or even imagine. Soohyun bids farewell with a gentle smile, promising to return soon, but time passes, and an entire year quickly flies by. The train slices through the landscape at high speed, marking the return of the warrior who spent the last months training in absolute secrecy. He observes the tracks and reflects that things took longer than he planned, even though a year has already passed. There was the worry of final exams along the way, but the relief of having cleared up to the 9th floor is greater. The next objective is the 10th floor, a place that requires much time and preparation to be overcome without making any mistakes. He knows that most awakened choose easier levels to avoid risks, but this only makes the subsequent floors impossible. Soohyun clenches his fist with determination, knowing that to change the terrible future he knows, he must become immensely strong. In his mind, he visualizes the green dungeon that is set to appear in Anyang exactly 1 year from now, bringing chaos and death. He sees images of a large-scale outbreak, with winged monsters covering the sky and transforming the city into a cemetery. This will be the first incident where humanity is truly threatened, and he is the only one who knows what is coming. Soon after will come the Gyeonggi-do incident on New Year's, a tragedy he is determined to erase from history for good. The young man's gaze becomes as sharp as a blade, fixed on the horizon as the sun sets behind the city buildings. He whispers to himself that he will change everything, no matter the cost, for he is no longer the weak boy of the past. Before him appears the imposing entrance to the 10th floor of the Tower of Trials, a portal emanating an ancient blue energy. A man sitting sloppily notices his arrival and comments that it seems he is finally heading for the 10th floor. The gate guardian, with the appearance of a beggar, extends his hand and asks for a contribution before allowing the young man to enter. Most people would ignore that dirty old man, but Soohyun knows that the information he possesses is worth more than pure gold. Without hesitation, he donates 5,000 achievement points, making the old man's eyes shine with surprise at such unexpected generosity. The Guardian admits that everyone usually ignores him and praises Soohyun for being someone who truly recognizes the value of things. He thanks Soohyun for his words and asks what kind of information the young man desires in exchange for so many valuable achievement points. Soohyun is direct, asking for specific information about the hidden dangers that await him within the challenges of the 10th floor of the tower. The old man warns that such details are expensive, but decides he can't let him leave empty-handed after receiving so much. He leans forward and whispers a warning that sends a chill down Soohyun's spine. Be very careful with the village chief. Soohyun questions if that's all, and the old man confirms it, leaving the young man intrigued by this ambiguous yet very dangerous enigma. The young man accepts the hint, knowing that a guardian's information is never wrong and always points to the hidden truth. The old man bids him farewell, wishing him caution, as the portal shines intensely, ready to transport the warrior to his next great test. The system announces the start of the trial for awakened Kim Soohyun, and the air around him begins to vibrate with magical power. He takes a deep breath, closing his eyes for a brief second to center his mind, before diving into the absolute unknown. The final notification appears, confirming the start of the 10th floor at level 10, the maximum difficulty that only lunatics would dare attempt. Meanwhile, in the real world, someone types furiously on their keyboard, spreading rumors and theories about the whereabouts of the #1 hero. The pressure on Soohyun's identity increases with each passing second, turning his life into a high-stakes game of hide-and-seek. The Abyss Online forums talk of nothing else, and the search for information about Ranker 1 becomes an obsession. Soohyun knows he can't turn back, and that every step he takes is now being watched by forces he doesn't know. He stares at the screen and feels the weight of unwanted fame, murmuring again about how this whole situation is getting really complicated. At the Ares Guild headquarters, the atmosphere is urgent, as they cannot let such a talent slip through their fingers. The brown-haired young man questions again about the guy in the news, trying to understand what makes him so special compared to others. The man in the suit explains that their simultaneous awakening is a clear sign that the two are destined to compete at the top. Jang-hyuk lets out a sound of doubt, still unconvinced that anyone could be superior to his own natural talent and effort. He insists he's never seen him and reminds them that the interior of the tower is vast enough to hide any kind of secret. The focus returns to the 3rd floor, but Soohyun's shadow remains present in every conversation and every future plan. Jang-hyuk claims his level is superior to others and that he can't waste time waiting for those who can't keep up with him. But he knows there is now a real challenger, and the name Kim Soohyun echoes in his mind like a war drum. He decides to go alone, trusting only his own strength to conquer the floors that most fear even to look at. The guild leader watches the young man leave, knowing that Jang-hyuk's pride could be his greatest weapon or his total ruin. He promises to continue looking for candidates, but advises the boy to focus exclusively on his ascent within the Tower of Trials. The veteran watches the redhead walk away, maintaining a cold gaze that hides his true intentions for the future of that powerful guild. He asks one last rhetorical question, laden with a meaning that only those who know the darkness of the tower could understand. The final order is clear. He must try to recruit Kim Soohyun, but Jang-hyuk merely curses softly against the fate that pursues him. The name of Ranker 1 becomes a mantra of hatred and curiosity, driving the redhead toward a confrontation that seems inevitable. A mental image of Soohyun appears in Jang-hyuk's mind, comparing his own presence with the mysterious aura of his greatest rival. He refuses to believe that the ordinary guy he saw on the street could be the monster leading the rankings. Even if it were him, Jang-hyuk wonders what would change, for his determination to be the best is unshakable and absolute. He decides to focus only on his own progress, leaving doubts behind as he walks toward the challenges that await him. Back home, his mother encourages him to rest, unaware that her son is about to enter a battlefield. Kim Soohyun accepts the affection, but his heart is already far away, in the dark and deadly corridors of the tower where he lives. He departs again, marking the beginning of a new era where he will no longer be just a player, but a living legend. Images of his past battles flash like a movie in his mind, serving as a lesson for the mistakes he will not repeat. He reflects on the year that has passed, feeling that every second of training was necessary for what he is about to face now. The completion of the 9th floor was a milestone, but he knows that the real tower begins now, on the 10th floor of death. The pretext of vacation serves as the perfect excuse for his absence, protecting his family from the brutal truth about his destiny. He observes ordinary people on the streets, knowing that their choice of easy paths is what will make them victims in the future. To prevent the world from falling, Soohyun knows that his thirst for power must be insatiable and his strength unquestionable. The vision of the large-scale monster outbreak returns to haunt him, reminding him of the urgency of his sacred mission as a savior. The Gyeonggi-do incident is the flame that fuels his will, a tragedy he swore with his own blood would never happen again. His eyes glow with an intense blue light, reflecting the system's energy that now courses through his veins like liquid fire. He reaffirms his commitment to changing the future, defying the gods and monsters who dare to stand in his path to glory. Again, he finds himself before the gate of the 10th floor, feeling the same overwhelming pressure he felt in his past life. The Guardian repeats his observation about the young man going to the 10th floor, acting as a spectral guide on that solitary and dangerous journey. The request for a contribution comes with the weight of an age-old tradition, a test of character before a test of brute strength. Soohyun doesn't hesitate, for he has learned that in the tower, the wisdom of those who have seen it all is a warrior's most valuable resource. The donation of 5,000 points gleams in the interface, a sacrifice of resources in exchange for a real chance of survival on the floor. The old beggar is surprised by the young man's attitude, recognizing in him the mark of someone destined for great heroic deeds. He offers a choice of information, and Soohyun, wasting no time, focuses on what truly matters for his current mission. The request for data on the 10th floor makes the air around the old man grow cold, indicating the matter is serious. The Guardian admits that what he is about to reveal is extremely valuable, but the debt of points compels him to be honest. He repeats the sinister warning about the village chief, making it clear that danger doesn't only come from external monsters. The ambiguity of the warning irritates Soohyun for a second, but he knows that in the tower, every word carries a deadly and precise weight. He accepts that this will have to be enough, and prepares to cross the line between the known world and the abyss. With the final warning to be careful echoing in his ears, Kim Soohyun steps into the dazzling light of the dimensional portal. The transition is swift and violent, sending his mind and body to a place where death lurks in every shadow of the village. He emerges into a new reality, surrounded by a dense forest and a heavy atmosphere that whispers omens of blood and betrayal. On the forest floor, small red fruits catch his attention, appearing too sweet for such a dark and tension-filled place. A little girl finds them and celebrates her luck, unaware that the sound of her joyful voice has attracted something hungry and cruel. She smiles at her full basket, feeling that today is the best day of her life, ignoring the approaching danger. The little girl brings one of the fruits to her mouth, savoring its sweetness, as the shadows around her begin to move slowly. A snap of a broken branch makes the girl's heart stop, and the silence of the forest suddenly becomes deafening and terrifying. She looks up, and her eyes fill with tears of pure dread as she sees the creature watching her from above. A giant lizard, with green scales and fiery eyes, descends from the tree like a living nightmare come to claim her life. The child's scream tears through the forest air, a desperate plea for help that no one in the world seems to hear. She begs for her mother as the monster opens its jaws full of sharp teeth, ready to deliver the final, fatal blow. The girl tries to run, but her legs tremble so much that she trips, falling defenseless before the death crawling towards her. The lizard lets out a guttural roar, sensing the prey's fear, and prepares for the leap that will end everything. Time seems to freeze as the little girl closes her eyes, awaiting the impact of the beast's teeth just inches away. But suddenly, a blue blur cuts across the girl's vision, and a powerful, protective presence emerges between her and the monster. Kim Soohyun appears like thunder, grabs the child, and says in a calm voice that cuts through the terror, "Hold tight." With a fluid movement, he leaps away from the lizard's attack, shielding the girl with his own body as he prepares his counterattack. He sets her down safely for an instant, his eyes gleaming with an icy fury directed entirely at the hungry beast before him. In a blur of speed and steel, he executes the transformation technique, and the system confirms the instant death of the enormous salamander. Soohyun turns to the trembling little girl and calls her softly, trying to calm the racing heart of the small survivor of that horror. He asks if she's all right, but the look of shock on the girl's face shows that the trauma is still very deep. He leads her to the outskirts of a nearby village, where the wooden houses appear old and weathered by time and misery. Soohyun tries to explain that he is just a traveler passing by who saved the girl, but the reception is anything but friendly. A gray-haired woman emerges screaming, accusing him of having malicious intentions behind that seemingly disinterested act of heroism. She yells that there is nothing for him to steal in the village, and orders him to leave immediately, leaving Soohyun confused and utterly speechless. He tries to clarify the misunderstanding, but realizes that the paranoia and fear in those eyes are deeper than any logical explanation. The young man scratches his head, feeling a bit embarrassed to be treated like a kidnapper after risking his life to save someone. He reflects that he did nothing wrong, but the hostile atmosphere of that place indicates that something terrible is festering within the village. The woman continues to watch him with suspicion, acting like a wolf, protecting her pack from an unknown predator who has just arrived. Her gaze is laden with ancient suffering, suggesting that strangers have brought nothing but pain to these tormented people in the recent past. The system then reveals the true objective of the trial, to save that village from the impending crisis, and, above all, to survive. Soohyun observes the surroundings, noticing the somber mood and the hateful stares he receives from every dark corner of those deserted streets. He realizes that this floor is different from all the others he has faced, requiring much more than just brute force to overcome. The word survive in the system's announcement sounds like a sinister warning that the real danger might be hidden in plain sight. He wonders where he can get useful information if everyone there sees him as a mortal enemy who must be expelled or killed. Silhouettes hide in the windows, watching his every step with a hostility that makes the air feel heavy and hard to breathe. He murmurs to himself that it will be almost impossible to get any help from these people who have already surrendered their souls to pure despair. Soohyun knows they are NPCs, but their intelligence and emotions are so real that it's frighteningly difficult to believe. It seems nothing like simple programming. They feel pain, hunger, and fear in a visceral way that strikes his heart. The extreme aversion to strangers and the pervasive gloom heavily remind him of the era of great tragedies he witnessed in his past life. He feels a rising fury against the creators of this cruel system, who implemented such a realistic and painful theme for pure entertainment. A long sigh escapes his lips as he tries to process the moral complexity of this new challenge the system has imposed upon him. The need for an informant is urgent, but he feels utterly alone in a desert of people who hate him for no reason. He sits beneath a large tree, trying to organize his thoughts and plan his next strategic move to infiltrate that closed society. Suddenly, a thin cry of "Mister!" slices through the silence, making the warrior spring to high alert, hand on his sword. It was the same girl he saved earlier, peeking from behind the tree trunk with a curious, slightly frightened gaze. She seems to be the only person there who doesn't see him as a monster, perhaps out of gratitude for still being alive thanks to him. The little one's hands tremble as she approaches slowly, fighting against the fear that the entire village seems to have instilled in her. Soohyun softens his expression, realizing that this child might be his only gateway to understanding what is truly happening there. He remains still so as not to scare her, acting like a gentle giant amidst the storm of hatred surrounding him in that cursed place. The young man carefully extends his hand, showing he carries no weapons or violent intentions against the small resident of that grim and hostile village. She peeks again, her large eyes shining with a mix of fear and a timid hope she can't entirely conceal. With an almost inaudible voice, she whispers a thank you that seems to be the first kind word spoken in that place in many months. Soohyun truly smiles for the first time, feeling that perhaps there's still a chance to complete this mission without spilling innocent blood. He maintains eye contact, trying to convey the security that child desperately needs amidst so much desolation and constant hunger. The young man asks if she can approach for a second, preparing a surprise he knows will break any barrier of distrust. She timidly approaches, and he reveals a bag full of warm, delicious food, making the girl's eyes sparkle like stars. Unable to contain herself, she bites into a piece of bread with an urgency that reveals the terrible hunger everyone in that village is enduring. "Wow, it's so delicious!" she exclaims with a full mouth, and Soohyun asks with a lump in his throat if the food is really that good. He questions the lack of food in the village, and she confirms that everyone is hostile only because they're afraid others will steal what little they have left. The girl comments that everyone is suffering, but says they only endure thanks to the village chief, who is seen as a true savior. "The village chief is the hero of our people," she proudly states, but Soohyun immediately finds the use of that specific title odd. She says her father always tells her that the chief protects everyone, while Soohyun thinks this narrative seems like a scenario set up by the system. The girl asks why he came, and Soohyun skillfully lies, saying he wants to help the chief fight the monsters threatening their peace. He recalls the monster from before, warning that they could attack at any moment, but the girl's answer puts him completely on alert. She assures him with blind confidence that the monsters absolutely cannot enter the village because of a special protection. "The chief made it so," she exclaims, and Soohyun realizes that this man's power over the village is absolute and mysterious. He was about to ask for more details, but a calm, authoritative voice emerges from behind him, asking if he is the outsider everyone is talking about. Soohyun turns and sees an elder with white hair and long robes, accompanied by a guard, walking slowly towards him. The old man introduces himself with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. "Pleasure to meet you. I am the chief of this village." In that instant, the gatekeeper's warning screams in Soohyun's mind, alerting him to be extremely cautious of this man. The elder remarks that it's regrettable to bring this up right at their meeting, but emphasizes that food here is far too precious to be wasted. He coldly asks Soohyun to stop distributing food without his express permission, establishing total dominance over the lives of those hungry people. Soohyun stares the chief in the eyes, realizing that the true fight for survival on this floor has just begun, and the enemy wears the face of benevolence. Somewhere distant, the harvest begins, but it's not the kind of fruit that brings life. A little girl smiles, thinking that luck has finally knocked on her door amidst the chaos. She looks at the full basket, unaware that the hunger of that village is a monster that never sleeps. "I should eat one first, since there's so much," she thinks, with the innocence of one who doesn't know danger. Suddenly, a dry crack shatters the forest's silence, and blood instantly runs cold. The fruits roll across the ground as terror takes a physical, scaly form right behind her. A giant lizard emerges from the shadows, its hungry eyes fixed on the easy prey trembling before it. The girl's desperate scream echoes through the trees, a plea for help that no one seems willing to hear. "Mommy! Save me!" she cries out. As the monster advances with deadly speed, the ground trembles with each step of the creature, and the end seems inevitable for the small villager. But fate has other plans. As a blue blur slices through the scene like lightning, the girl feels the rush of a sudden movement, and for a second, she forgets how to breathe. "Hold tight." Kim Soohyun's voice is firm, an anchor in the storm of fear. He leaps with superhuman agility, pulling the child from death's path in the last millisecond. The air whips around them as the protagonist prepares for the decisive counterattack. With a precise strike, the creature collapses, and the system confirms the death of the great salamander. Soohyun looks at the small survivor, trying to calm her heart that still pounds frantically. "Hey, child, are you all right?" he asks. But her gaze reveals the trauma runs deep. The sky over Miller Village remains heavy, as if carrying the weight of 1,000 hidden sins. Soohyun realizes his arrival wasn't just a coincidence, but the beginning of something much greater. "I'm just a passerby who saved a child while I was around," he tries to explain to the hostile crowd, but a woman interrupts, her face contorted by a distrust that borders on madness. "I know you have other intentions. It's no use taking hostages, we have nothing for you to take." Soohyun is incredulous at the reception, his silence weighing more heavily than any excuse he could offer. To be treated as a kidnapper is the height of irony for someone who just risked his life. He wonders why the people on this floor act as if every shadow is an assassin. The woman remains on guard, protecting what's left of her village tooth and nail. The tension is palpable, a thread about to snap between the hero and the protected people who hate him. The system's mission flashes in his mind: save this village from crisis and survive. The sound of his footsteps on the beaten ground echoes the hostility of every villager watching him from the cracks. The 10th floor is unlike anything else, a test where morality seems to be the greatest obstacle. Survive sounds like a sinister warning, a premonition that the true danger has yet to reveal itself. Soohyun needs information, but how can he get anything from people who spit on the ground he walks on? Silhouettes hide in the alleys, eyes gleaming with a fear that has turned into pure hatred. He knows he won't get anything from these people with just kind words or heroic deeds. These NPCs are frighteningly human, feeling a pain and despair that no code could explain. It doesn't seem like programming, it feels like a real tragedy being staged before his eyes. This atmosphere of depression and paranoia, he's seen it before, in a past that still haunts him. The creators of this system truly know how to replicate the worst of humanity in a horror scenario. A heavy sigh escapes his lips as he walks beneath the shadow of ancient trees. He needs an informant, any clue, but the village seems like a desert of closed-off souls. His feet stop when he notices a subtle movement near the base of a colossal tree trunk. "Sir!" A childish whisper breaks Soohyun's isolation and puts him on alert. It's the same girl from before, trembling like a leaf, but driven by a dangerous curiosity. She stares at him with wide eyes, internally debating between fear and gratitude. Her small hands fidget, and Soohyun realizes she wants to give him something in secret. The protagonist observes every detail, aware that every small action here can change the course of the trial. In a quick movement, she drops something and flees, disappearing among the shadows of the houses. Soohyun picks up what appears to be a handful of wild berries, the same treasure that almost got her killed. She watches him from afar, hidden, as if waiting to see if he would accept the gift. "Thank you!" The word comes out almost inaudible, but carries the weight of a life's debt. Soohyun feels a lump in his throat. Their humanity is what makes this floor so cruel. He gives a discreet smile, perhaps the first real connection he makes in this cursed place. "Can you come here for a second?" he calls, his voice softened by unexpected compassion. He opens his own pouch, and the light reflects off the plentiful food, leaving the girl in absolute shock. She bites into the bread with desperate urgency, as if it were her last meal on earth. "Wow, it's so delicious!" she exclaims, and Soohyun feels the weight of the misery plaguing these people. He asks about the lack of food, and she confirms that the hostility is just the fear of starving to death. She says everyone is suffering, but they only endure thanks to their hero, the village chief. "Hero?" Soohyun repeats the word, feeling a bitter taste and immediate distrust. Her father says the chief protects everyone, and Soohyun understands that this is the narrative that maintains order. He lies, saying he wants to help the elder with food or by fighting the monsters that roam the village. Soohyun mentions the creature from before, warning that attacks could happen at any moment. The girl's answer is a punch to the gut. Monsters don't enter the village because of a protective barrier. They say the chief made it this way, she states with blind and dangerous confidence. Before he can ask more, an authoritative voice emerges. "Are you the outsider everyone is talking about?" The village chief walks towards him, escorted, with the posture of one who holds the power of life and death. "Pleasure to meet you. I am the chief of this village." His smile is glacial and doesn't reach his eyes. The gatekeeper's warning echoes in Soohyun's mind. Beware of the village chief. The elder laments the tone, but says that the food here is too precious to be given without control. "I would appreciate it if you would stop distributing food without my express permission." He marks his territory, making it clear that no one eats unless he decides who deserves to live. The rationing prohibition is a knife to the throats of the starving, and Soohyun understands the cruel game. Soohyun stares back at him, remaining calm while planning his next move against this tyrant. He asks permission to stay a few nights, acting like a common traveler seeking shelter. The elder hesitates, claiming that the residents are suspicious and that his presence is a risk. Soohyun realizes that the elder is testing his patience, measuring the danger the young man represents. The chief reprimands the girl for eating without permission, and the child wilts under his gaze. The elder's hand moves, a gesture of dominance that Soohyun cannot let pass without reacting. "Don't worry, there's no reason to be disheartened." Soohyun intervenes, protecting the girl. The girl looks at him with hope, seeing in him a kind of strength that the village had forgotten existed. "I just gave some of my food. It won't affect the village at all." Soohyun activates his inventory, and a dimensional bag appears, shining with an impossible promise. "Chief, it's food, an incredible amount," the guard exclaims, eyes bulging. "If you give me a place to sleep, I will provide all the food you need." Soohyun plays his final card, offering a bribe that the chief cannot refuse in front of witnesses. "Follow me." The elder accepts, but Soohyun knows this invitation is the beginning of a nightmare. He promises the last empty house, a place where the outsider will remain under the constant gaze of the village. Soohyun notices something strange and stops, feeling that the atmosphere has changed drastically in minutes. As he goes for a walk, he encounters a crowd that seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. "Please wash away our ignorant sins with blood." The religious cry sends shivers down his spine. He's seen this movie before. Desperate people always seek comfort in fanatical madness. In worlds that are ending, desperation makes men lose their reason in terrible ways. Some hide behind religion while facing the abyss of their own destruction. Others commit unspeakable atrocities after abandoning any trace of humanity. In the end, Soohyun knows well that usually no one is left to tell the story. He thought this village was tame, that at least here, no one would try to harm another. But the gleam of a blade under the moonlight reveals that he was tragically mistaken about this place. "We sacrifice this impure soul!" The scream tears through the night like a death sentence. "Please, grant your little lambs honor, peace, and rest." The dagger descends with brutal precision, cutting not only the rope, but human dignity. A bound man falls into a dark pit, his screams swallowed by the hungry earth. A hooded figure observes the sacrifice, silence being the only response to the horror. Soohyun clenches his fists. Human selfishness seems to be the only constant across all worlds. Villagers whisper that it's tragic for the Miller family, but it was necessary to save everyone. They thank the chief, believing that the blood of innocence is the price of divine protection. They feel safe for now, ignoring that their god's hunger will soon return. The villagers' shadows lengthen, revealing monsters far worse than those living in the forest. The ritual was a success, but the assistant reminds the chief that another offering will be needed in 3 days. The elder asks about the outsider's movements, his evil plan already in full motion. "As I thought, you only accepted that outsider to turn him into a sacrifice." A sleeping potion is placed on the table. Soohyun's fate has been sealed with a green vial. The chief justifies that a small sacrifice for the protection of the majority is inevitable and correct. "Shouldn't we try to save at least one more villager?" The cynicism in his voice is pure venom. The village has already been consumed by fear, and fear is the favorite tool of tyrants like him. They fear the monsters outside, not realizing that the true monster sits on the village's throne. The elder sees himself as a martyr, someone who bears the weight of deaths in the name of the common good. "I had to sacrifice some, but I feel no guilt for them," he confesses in the darkness. The plan is set. Soohyun will be the next meal for whatever lives beneath the ground of Miller Village. Torches illuminate the executioner's path as they head to the protagonist's lodging. The young man is dragged, unconscious from the drug, like an animal led directly to the slaughterhouse. They show no remorse, only the selfish desire to live another day at another's expense. Soohyun's body hits the wooden floor, the dull thud marking the beginning of the ceremony. "Please, forgive us, outsider." The words spill hollow from the mouths of the hooded traitors. The blade cuts the last protection, paving the way for the abyss that awaits below. This is all for the good of the village. The mantra of cruelty is repeated one last time. The mechanism is triggered, and the trapdoor opens to reveal a darkness that seems endless. Soohyun falls, but mid-fall, something in his eyes changes. The drug is losing its effect. The villagers watch from above, believing the problem solved and peace bought. Footsteps recede from the crime scene, leaving the hero behind in a hole full of bones. The chief comments that it's been a day since they threw the outsider to be digested by the beast. He plans the next attacks, using the subterranean monster to mark the village's territory. But he stops abruptly, feeling a presence that shouldn't be there in that cave. Sweat drips down the elder's face as he realizes the silence below has been broken. A guttural sound echoes, and it doesn't come from the monster he expected to find. A giant snake lies dead, its head crushed by a force the old man cannot comprehend. "What brings you here, chief?" Soohyun emerges from the shadows, his eyes gleaming with hatred. The image flashes back to the moment the old man forbade him from feeding the hungry, the irony stark. "Are you the village chief?" The girl's question now resounds like an accusation. All the polite conversation from before now seems like a sick joke in the protagonist's mind. The excuses about the villagers being distrustful were just a smokescreen for murder. Soohyun remembers how the old man never let his guard down, protecting his bloody secret at all costs. The image of him scolding the child over food now reveals the face of a controlling monster. Soohyun's hand on the girl's head was the last act of kindness before the grand betrayal. "Don't worry," he said, but now he knows everyone should be very worried. That child's innocence was used as bait to lure the hero into the sacrifice trap. He tried to argue that his food wouldn't affect the village, unaware that the plan was to kill him. The glimmer of the dimensional pouch sealed his fate. The chief wanted his resources and his body. "Chief! It's food!" The guard's cry was the sign that the fish had taken the bait. The promise of providing provisions was what convinced the elder that Soohyun was the perfect prey. "It's not difficult," he said about giving a room, already planning where the body would be dumped. "Follow me." Those words were the beginning of Soohyun's descent into his own hell. The empty house was just the mortuary where he would wait until the potion took full effect. His astonishment at seeing the crowd now makes sense. He was seeing his own executioners gathered. He thought it was just a stroll, but he was parading before those who thirsted for his blood. "Wash away our sins." The villagers' cry now sounds like the chorus of a demon horde. Soohyun recalls every scene, every detail of that grotesque staging of religion and death. In a dying world, madness is the only refuge for those who lack the courage to fight. They hide behind non-existent gods to justify the murder of those who try to help. Atrocities committed by praying hands. This is the rotten reality of this tower floor. In the end, Soohyun knows that no one will be left to save if he doesn't act now. He compared it to the past, thinking it was tame here, but the wickedness here is silent and lethal. The shock of seeing the dagger was the moment it finally clicked for the global rank 1. "We sacrificed this soul." The echo of that phrase still burns in the protagonist's ears. They prayed for peace and rest while condemning a man to be devoured alive by a beast. And rest! The executioner struck the blow, believing he had defeated humanity's hero. The scream of the previous sacrifice now fuels the rage boiling in Soohyun's blood. The hooded figure who watched everything will now face the consequences of their actions. Human selfishness never changes, but Soohyun is here to ensure it is punished. They said it was to protect the village, but it was just to save their own cowardly hides. They planned the next sacrifice in 3 days, unaware that there would be no tomorrow for them. "We'll be fine for a while," the last lie they told themselves before the end. The red eyes in the darkness weren't from monsters. They were the dark desires of each villager. In the office, the chief celebrated his success, unaware that death was already climbing the stairs. He asked about suspicious movements, but Soohyun was smarter than any spy. "You accepted him to be sacrificed." The elder's absolute betrayal was finally confirmed. The poison in the vial, the fall into the abyss. Everything was calculated, but they forgot one vital detail. Kim Soohyun is not a sacrifice. He is the executioner himself, come to collect Miller Village's blood debt. As time passes, the village's situation grows more critical, and the elder believes that a small sacrifice for the majority is inevitable. He looks into Soohyun's eyes and asks, without a shred of remorse, if they shouldn't try to save at least one more villager. Years ago, a man-eating serpent built its nest beneath the houses, and fear became the new ruler of that somber place. Coincidentally, the beast's scent warded off other monsters, and Miller Village became a safe haven, but at a bloody price. The soil was baptized with the blood of innocents, while the villagers lived consumed by the constant terror of an attack from outside. As leader, the elder decided that the blood of a few would buy the peace of many, transforming himself into his people's own executioner. He coldly confesses to sacrificing several neighbors and friends, but feels not a shred of guilt for any of those lives lost in the dark. Night falls over Miller Village, but what seems to be a peaceful silence is merely the prelude to a grotesque and cowardly ritual. Hooded men raise torches whose flames dance like demons, illuminating the path to the place where life is exchanged for survival. They carry Soohyun's body as if it were a worthless burden, merchandise about to be delivered to the subterranean beast. Each step echoes on the old wood, a sound marking the countdown to the end of the hero who only wanted to help. The body falls to the ground with a dry thud, helpless and at the mercy of men who traded their humanity for a bit of bread. "Please, forgive us, stranger." The hypocritical whisper tries to ease the conscience of those about to commit cold-blooded murder. The blade's gleam reflects the torch fire, a tool of death in the hands of those who swore to protect their own community. This is all for the good of the village. The cursed phrase is repeated like a mantra to drown out the screams their souls should be emitting. The rope snaps, and with it, any hope that these people still held salvation in the eyes of the tower's global rank 1. Soohyun plunges into darkness, but his eyes aren't closed. He observes each face, engraving the betrayal deep within his cold mind. The villagers watch from above, hoping the monster below accepts the feast and grants them a few more days of their false lives. The ensuing silence is heavy, broken only by the rhythmic sound of footsteps emerging from the shadows where death should reign. The elder walks with his lantern, counting the minutes since they threw the stranger into the abyss, hoping the beast has already finished. It's been a day since we threw him down there. It's almost time for her to mark her territory again, he plans as if tending to livestock. The elder's feet suddenly stop when a familiar figure appears before him, cutting off the weak light from his oil lantern. Shock paralyzes the old man, and his expression of confidence transforms into a mask of pure horror as he witnesses the impossible. Soohyun lets out a dry sound, his presence emanating an overwhelming pressure that seems to drain all warmth from the damp cave. Behind him, the colossal body of the serpent lies lifeless, a mountain of scales that will strike fear into no one else today. What brings you here, Chief? The question is loaded with lethal sarcasm that makes the elder tremble from head to toe. The old man stutters, trying to process the scene. The god he fed with human flesh was slaughtered like any common animal in the mud. Soohyun takes a step forward, and the sound of his boots on the ground echoes like a hammer striking an open coffin. The monster's carcass is a monument to the protagonist's strength. He doesn't even seem to have broken a sweat eradicating the village's nightmare. What brings you here? He repeats, forcing the traitor to face the reality that his reign of lies is over. What is this? How could this happen? The elder falls to his knees, feeling the world he built crumble in a second. He extends a trembling hand, unable to accept that the monster which guaranteed his safety is dead and dismembered before his eyes. Soohyun tilts his head, observing the despair of the man who pretended to be a spiritual guide while being merely a merchant of human lives. You speak as if this monster shouldn't have died. The rank one's voice is like the cold edge of a razor blade. The old man tries to find an excuse, but the words die in his dry throat as cold sweat drips down his face. The charade is over, and now there are no more dark gods to hide the cowardice dwelling in the heart of that dishonorable leader. It was for the good of the village. Without this snake, the other monsters will destroy us, he shouts, trying to justify the unjustifiable with others' fear. For the good of the village, or so you could continue being their false hero. Soohyun exposes the open wound of his vanity. The elder recoils, struck by the truth he had tried to hide even from himself throughout all these years of rituals and human sacrifices. Soohyun explains that he knows the nature of the greedy serpent, a lazy species that only marks territory to protect its own sleep and its offspring. Another characteristic of this beast is that it doesn't see those who truly feed it as food. The revelation makes the elder completely pale. The old man's eyes widen, realizing that Soohyun understood the entire scheme. He wasn't just sacrificing people, he was training a pet. I imagine you knew this. Soohyun advances, and each word is a nail in the coffin of the reputation of the man fallen on the ground. And you kept feeding the beast with the villagers while pretending to be their savior. The cruelty of the plan is finally revealed in broad daylight. The elder has nowhere left to run. He is a broken man, a false prophet exposed by someone who knows the tower's secrets. However, your hypocrisy has also come to an end now. The ultimatum is delivered with the coldness of someone who no longer accepts excuses. The serpent's carcass serves as a backdrop to the fall of a tyrant who ruled through terror and religious manipulation. The villagers begin to gather around, drawn by the noise and the disturbing sight of the monster they believe to be an immortal god. Is it true? Did the chief lie to us? Whispers begin to spread like wildfire through the crowd that once obeyed blindly. And my husband? He was sacrificed while trusting the chief. A woman's cry breaks the tension, laden with unbearable pain. Some still try to defend the system, saying that, despite the lies, the serpent genuinely protected them from attacks by other forest monsters. What are we going to do now? Without the snake, we're doomed. Panic begins to take hold, but Soohyun interrupts the collective hysteria. I will help you. The short phrase makes everyone stop, looking at the outsider with a mix of hope and deep distrust. Soohyun kneels down and starts rummaging through the beast's remains, preparing to show what truly matters in that damp cave. These are serpent eggs, the offspring of the monster you feared so much. He shows the oval objects faintly glowing in the light. Listen to what I have to say before you panic. He dominates the scene with the authority of someone who has already won 1,000 battles. He reminds them that the serpent does not attack those who provide it with sustenance, and it is precisely this characteristic that he intends to use to save Miller Village. We will raise these small serpents so that they protect this place just as their mother did. The plan seems insane to the villagers. One of the offspring breaks its shell, a small creature with red eyes, born with the instincts of an elite tower predator. Don't worry, there will be no more human sacrifices as in the past, he assures them, trying to calm the hearts of those who lost everything to the beast. But what will we feed them then? Soohyun replies without hesitation. We will feed them other monsters. The idea of hunting other monsters to feed the serpents makes the peasants recoil. They were never warriors, just surviving victims of a cruel world. I will hunt for you at first, but I am an outsider and will soon leave. The warning makes it clear that the village needs to change. What? You want farmers to use farm tools to hunt beasts? The outrage of a spiky-haired man shows the depth of their fear. Doesn't this village belong to you? If you don't protect it, who else will? Soohyun throws the responsibility back at them. A man tries to argue that it's not as easy as it sounds, that they don't possess the strength or skills necessary to face the danger. Then just give up. Go back to sacrificing your own children and neighbors to sleep peacefully at night. Soohyun's bluntness cuts like an axe. The silence that follows is one of pure shame. The villagers stare at the ground, confronted with the very cowardice that allowed the elder to rule them. They have no intention of protecting themselves, always preferring a hero or a monster to do the dirty work for them in the end. Soohyun looks at the elder and the people, pondering the burden of being a hero for those who lack the courage to fight for their own lives. Did I put too much hope in people who have already given up on everything? He questions himself, ready to turn his back and go his way. But before he moves, a small, determined voice cuts through the heavy air of Miller Village Square. I'll do it! Soohyun turns and sees the little girl he saved earlier, the same one who was starving and paranoid when he arrived on that floor. She walks to the center of the crowd, her small hands clenched into fists, while her mother tries to hold her back with a look of pure terror. You? That time, Soohyun recognizes the sparkle in the child's eyes, the same sparkle he has carried since receiving his own burden. I don't know if I'll be much help, but even so, she speaks with a choked voice, but without backing down a single step. I want to become strong like you and protect the people of my village. The declaration makes the adults around feel the weight of their own inertia. Soohyun observes the little villager's determination, realizing that the seed he planted by feeding her is finally beginning to bear real fruit. You are a wonderful child. A rare, genuine smile appears on the face of the rank 1, who rarely finds purity amidst the tower's chaos. He declares that if everyone works together, Miller Village will never again need to fear the darkness or rely on lies to survive tomorrow. Even that small child is willing to risk everything, which makes the grown men begin to exchange glances of regret and newfound determination. A scruffy bearded man steps forward, feeling the warmth of the girl's courage ignite his own spirit, previously dormant with fear. I'll try! That's better than dying like a dog after doing nothing. His cry is the signal everyone was waiting for. Me too! I'll do it! I'll give it a chance! The voices begin to add up, creating a chorus of resistance the village had never heard. A villager in a green shirt approaches Soohyun, admitting that they were selfish to expect others alone to solve their life or death problems. So, at least until you leave, could you teach us how to fight? The request is the beginning of a profound transformation for the entire village. A blue interface glows before Soohyun, notifying him that the trial's progress has changed and new possibilities have opened for the global rank 1. He accepts the challenge, knowing that training sheep to become wolves is a task worthy of someone who aims to conquer the top of the Tower of Trials. All right, so shall we begin? With these words, the fate of Miller Village is sealed by an iron will that knows no bounds. Meanwhile, hidden somewhere in the shadows, malicious eyes watch the change, displeased with the interference of the outsider who shattered the balance of fear. Someone walks in anger, gritting their teeth at being scorned by a stranger who doesn't know their true place in that hierarchy of pain. A man in a white robe observes a colossal creature, a monster seemingly sprung from humanity's worst nightmares, awaiting the command for total massacre. The monster lets out a guttural laugh that makes the walls vibrate, a sound of pure sadism, anticipating the blood feast about to descend upon the village. The danger Soohyun struck down was only the beginning. Something far more sinister lurks in the depths of the 10th floor, ready to test Miller's new army. The beast's eye opens, revealing a vertical pupil overflowing with hatred, a sign that the truce enforced by the ancient sacrifice has been definitively broken. "I will destroy everything!" The ominous promise echoes, revealing that the true face of evil has yet to show all its cards in this deadly game. The ground trembles under the weight of what is to come, and the villagers' newly won peace seems more fragile than ever before this absolute new threat. The elder, now a shadow of his former self, watches from the corner, perhaps hoping that chaos will return to prove his logic of sacrifice was the only solution. But Soohyun remains unshaken. He has faced worse and knows that every obstacle is just another step towards the power he so desperately craves. He walks over the remains of the dead serpent, a throne of flesh, symbolizing his victory over the cowardly past of a people who now follow him. The village chief tries to approach one last time, seeking a retort, but Soohyun's gaze makes him retreat like a cornered animal before a predator. "What is all this?" the elder asks again, still unable to accept that the control he exerted for decades evaporated in a single afternoon. "You actually killed it. How was that possible?" The old man's disbelief is the final proof that he never understood the true power of a rank 1. Soohyun simply ignores him, focusing his attention on the villagers who are now cleaning their farming tools to transform them into improvised weapons for war and hunting. He reminds the elder that the monster was not a protector, but a leash that kept everyone enslaved by fear and dependence on a corrupt leader. "This is merely the beginning of what you will face," he warns, preparing the spirits of those men for the brutal reality that awaits them outside. The elder trembles, realizing that the safety he bought with others' blood was merely an illusion that Soohyun decided to shatter without hesitation or mercy. "It was for the good of the village. Without that territory mark, the beasts would come in hordes," he cries out one last time, desperate to maintain his savior narrative. "It was always about you and your inability to fight for something real," Soohyun retorts, silencing the elder with the raw force of his own heroic conviction. The old man falls silent, realizing his voice no longer holds weight, and his authority has been buried alongside the greedy serpent's head in the mud. Soohyun explains in detail how the monster operated, using his technical knowledge of the tower to demystify the fear that had haunted the community for generations. If you feed the hatchlings, they will recognize your scent and won't see anyone here as potential prey. The method is logical and efficient. The elder listens to every detail, feeling the bitterness of realizing that his blood solution was the most foolish and inefficient of all existing options. "I imagine you knew this all along, but preferred the path of sacrifice because it was easier to control." The accusation is definitive and crushing. Social control exercised through fear is humanity's oldest and most rotten tactic, and Soohyun has no patience for those who employ it in his presence. The elder is finished, his figure shrunken before the cold, pragmatic majesty of the protagonist who came to change the rules of this death game. Miller's hypocrisy ends here and now. Soohyun ends the discussion, turning to what truly matters, the active survival of all residents. The serpent's body begins to reek, a physical reminder that the time for excuses is over, and the time for action has begun for those who wish to see tomorrow. The residents of Miller Village gaze at the carcass, feeling the weight of lives uselessly lost due to cowardly and deceitful leadership for years. Is it true? Have we been deceived for so long? The feeling of betrayal boils in the chests of every father and mother who saw neighbors disappear into the darkness. "My husband died for nothing. He died to uphold this old man's lie." The pain transforms into a silent, dangerous fury within the crowd. Some still hesitate, fearing the outsider will abandon them to their fate before the new serpents grow large enough to truly protect them from the beasts. "What will become of us now? We are vulnerable." Soohyun replies that their power will not come from beasts, but from the courage to fight for themselves. What? Confusion is widespread, for no one in that village knows what it means to be a warrior in a world that devours the weak without chewing. Soohyun shows that the true test wasn't killing the serpent, but transforming victims into combatants capable of sustaining their own existence in the Tower of Trials. Look at these serpent eggs. The future of your protection lies within these fragile shells. He places the responsibility directly into the calloused hands of the villagers. Listen carefully. If you want to live, you will have to get your hands dirty with monster blood every day from now on. The proposal is harsh, but honest. He proposes that the hatchlings be raised underground and that the villagers take turns hunting to feed them, creating a real and sustainable defense cycle. Small serpent heads begin to emerge, their red eyes searching for the first trace of who will be their master and provider in this new lawless world. There will be no more deaths among you. Soohyun's promise is the first true ray of light Miller has received in a long time of total darkness. But what will we give them? Monsters? The idea of hunting wild beasts still seems like a distant nightmare for those who only know how to handle earth and plow. Yes, monsters. I will lead the first hunts and teach you how to take down a beast without dying in the process. Soohyun offers his mentorship. However, he emphasizes that his stay is temporary and that the village must be able to stand on its own feet before he moves on to the next floor. This is madness. You want us to use hoes against beasts that can tear through iron? A man's disbelief shows how fear has atrophied their souls. The village is yours. If you don't fight for it, you deserve for it to burn to the ground. Soohyun has no time for cheap sentimentality. He asks who else would come to their aid if they themselves weren't willing to bleed for the land where they bury their dead and raise their children. Just give up then. Go back to your hole and wait for the next beast to come devour what little dignity you have left. The crowd of men and women bows their heads, feeling the weight of those words that expose the truth about the passivity that almost completely annihilated them. Soohyun watches them with controlled disdain, waiting to see if there's any spark of humanity left, one not extinguished by decades of cowardly submission. The elder and the village look like a painting of decay, proof that the tower doesn't just test physical strength, but the will to exist above one's own pain. Did I hope too much for those already dead inside? Soohyun's thought reflects the solitude of one who carries the burden of being a true hero. Suddenly, the silence is shattered by a thin, sharp cry that makes everyone present tremble. I'll do it! Soohyun stares at the small villager who stepped forward from the crowd, her tiny figure seeming giant against the cowardice of the adults around her in this very moment. She ignores her mother's arms trying to pull her back into the safety of the shadows, keeping her eyes fixed on the man who saved her from certain death. From that time in the cabin, Soohyun sees in her what is missing in all the others, the flame of survival that refuses to be extinguished by fear. I don't know if I'll be useful, but I don't want to see anyone else eaten by these things while we pray and cry anymore. I want to become strong like you and ensure no one else has to be sacrificed in this village. Her voice echoes, charged with pure courage. Soohyun watches her, feeling that perhaps saving that single life was worth more than all the points he had accumulated since entering the Tower of Trials. You are a great child. You have the spirit of a true warrior. Soohyun's praise is the seal of approval that changes the atmosphere of the place. If everyone works together, Miller Village won't just be a hiding place, but a bastion of resistance against the darkness surrounding the 10th floor of the tower. Inspired by the little one, the men begin to stand, ashamed to have been surpassed in bravery by a girl who barely reaches their waist at the moment. A bearded villager steps forward, gripping the handle of his tool with a strength he didn't know he still possessed in his weary body. I'll try too. It's better to die fighting than to live hiding like a rat in the corners. The war cry finally awakens the entire village. Me too! Let's fight! Count me in! The clamor spreads, transforming fear into a raw energy that Soohyun can now mold and direct according to his will. A peasant in a green shirt thanks Soohyun for opening their eyes and for showing them that they were selfish for waiting for miracles that would never come for free. Teach us to fight, master. Teach us to be like you. The plea is the birth of a new Miller, a village that no longer kneels before false gods. Soohyun feels the change, and a system notification confirms that the trial has been altered by his direct influence on the fate of those NPCs. Almost too human for his taste. He smiles wryly, knowing that the real work is just beginning, and that the blood now to be spilled will serve to build a real future for all of them. All right, let's start right now. Prepare for hell. The warning is a prelude to the relentless training that will transform those sheep into war wolves. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, shadows move with supernatural agility, reacting to the death of the serpent that maintained the balance of power in that region of the tower. An arrogant figure observes from afar, smelling the scent of change and preparing to crush the villagers' rebellion before it becomes a real threat to his plans. A man walks with a lantern, but its light brings no comfort, only illuminates the hideous creature following him like a pet ravenous for flesh and human suffering. The beast lets out a shriek that cuts through the night, a sound of pure hatred signaling the start of the hunt against the global rank 1 and his army of amateurs in intensive training. Bones break and the earth is churned by powerful claws that know no mercy, setting the stage for the next confrontation that will decide Miller's fate once and for all. The eye of a giant bird opens, fixing on the village with a malevolent intelligence that suggests the danger is much greater than Soohyun initially imagined. I will destroy everything he has built. The grim promise is made by a new enemy who refuses to accept the breaking of the sacrificial order that reigned in that place. The agony cry of a captured prey in the forest serves as an audible warning that death does not take vacations, even when a hero decides to intervene in the cruel fate of a suffering people. The sound of blows and explosions begins to echo through the surroundings, indicating that Soohyun has already taken his new students to the battlefield to test their courage in bloody practice. He observes a captured and bound creature, using it as a practical example of how monster biology can be used to the advantage of survivors who know where to strike with lethal precision. So if we feed these beasts to the hatchlings, they'll become our guard dogs without demanding human lives in return? Comprehension finally dawns on the slower peasants in the class. Soohyun demonstrates the technique, facing a giant centipede with an ease that borders on insulting the dangerousness of the beast that terrifies anyone who dares cross its path in the forest. The villagers watch in awe, realizing that the stranger is not only strong but possesses a mastery of combat that seems divine to their untrained and frightened eyes. He strikes with surgical precision, each movement conserving energy while maximizing the damage inflicted on the monster's hardened exoskeleton as it tries, uselessly, to defend itself from the hero. The monster falls, becoming another food source for the serpents that will grow beneath Miller Village, ensuring everyone's safety through strength, and no longer through cowardice. The sunset stains the sky with blood, a visual reminder that the day's work was hard, but everyone there is still alive to see the stars appear on the tower's horizon. Let's stop for now, the sun is setting. Don't kill yourselves on the first day, get back inside. The villagers' warning shows that cooperation has finally been born in that place. Soohyun wipes the blood from his blade and watches the horizon, knowing that the seeds of change have been planted, but the harvest will be reaped with far more sweat and blood than anyone there imagines. The system glows in the air, showing that the mission stopped at 90%. He wonders what's missing for total completion as the cold wind blows. Suddenly, the ground beneath his feet begins to tremble with absurd force. Soohyun's eyes widen as he feels an overwhelming pressure coming from above. An explosion of light rips through the sky, and earth flies in all directions. From the clouds, a majestic creature emerges, wreathed in intense blue fire. This is the only predator capable of hunting the serpent Soohyun has trained. The legendary sacred blue flame bird descends like a living meteor. The beast's cry echoes through the forest, chilling the blood of anyone who hears it. Soohyun lets out a short laugh, finally understanding the floor's ultimate challenge. So, it was because of this guy that the mission wasn't ending. Hidden among the trees, the former village chief watches the scene with a crazed look. He believes the blue flames are a sign of his comeback. Behold the grandeur of this bird. The villagers will treat me as a hero again. The monster fixes its golden eyes on the old man, without any sign of mercy. Yes, little creature, it was I who awakened you from this deep slumber. The elder orders the beast to serve him as its new absolute master. The bird's response is a breath of flames that incinerates everything around it. The old man barely has time to scream before being swallowed by the blue fire. Soohyun observes the trail of destruction and feels the heat scorching the air. The monster spins in the sky and points directly towards the village. If that thing reaches the houses, no one will have the slightest chance of survival. Soohyun dashes at high speed, shouting that he won't allow this massacre. He leaps between the rocks, trying to cut off the path of the flame creature. The bird flaps its wings and generates shockwaves that knock down trees. The distance is too great, and time is running out for the villagers. Soohyun stretches out his hand, but the beast is too fast to be caught. Damn it, I won't make it in time like this. The monster's gaze is pure death instinct aimed at the innocents. Soohyun grinds his teeth, feeling the weight of responsibility crush his shoulders. He plunges into the chaos, ignoring the sparks that burn his skin. The battlefield becomes a blur of dust and lethal blue flames. Wounded and fallen, a young man on the ground whispers that all is lost now. Soohyun refuses to accept the end and focuses on the villagers' courage. He struggles to his feet, blood streaking his ash-stained face. The pain is a reminder that he is still alive to fight. Meanwhile, two villagers walk calmly, unaware of the imminent danger in the forest. They praise Soohyun's dedication, calling the young man an incredible person. The bird's shadow covers their path like a shroud of death. The man jokes about his youth, without noticing the blue glow above the trees. A stone pillar explodes, and debris flies towards the two. The sacred bird appears before them, illuminating the night with a macabre glow. Panic takes over, and the men freeze before the monster's magnitude. The air becomes unbreathable, and the heat begins to melt the ground. The villagers' scream of terror is muffled by the deafening roar of the bird. A rope cuts through the air, followed by the gleam of a sharp blade. The monster tries to dodge, but the attack is precise and carries a chilling hatred. Soohyun appears out of nowhere, determined to force fate with his own hands. "I've got you, you cursed bird. Now you're not going anywhere." He clings to the creature, feeling the fire try to consume his clothes and skin. The system activates the transfiguration skill, allowing him to copy the target's power. A shadowy aura envelops Soohyun as he absorbs the essence of the blue flame. The bird thrashes violently, trying to shake off the human riding it. Far away, in the real world, Soohyun's mother talks calmly on the phone. She says her son is traveling the countryside and seems very mature. Little does she know her son is clinging to a fire demon. Soohyun tightens the rope, feeling the limits of his physical strength being tested. Damn it, copying this beast's abilities comes at too high a cost. He coughs up blood, but doesn't loosen his grip on the monster's improvised reins. The phoenix spirit tries to expel Soohyun's soul in a spiritual battle. The young man's body begins to glow with the same intensity as the beast. "It's too hot. It feels like I'm burning from the inside out." He closes his eyes, refusing to surrender to the unbearable agony of the flames. The image of the world's destruction flashes through his mind like a warning. "Please, save the city and stay alive." The promise echoes in his soul. He realizes that protecting these people is the only thing that matters now. Power explodes in a column of purple light, defying the blue fire. "Control yourself, Soohyun. You can still fight a little longer for these people." He uses the recovery item, Sheire's treasure, to heal his fatal wounds. Renewed energy surges through his muscles, allowing for one last desperate effort. Soohyun raises his sword, which now glows with a lethal combination of powers. "Go back to the hell you should never have left." The blow descends with the force of divine judgment upon the bird. A blinding light covers the entire village, transforming night into clear day. The beast's spirit shatters under the merciless blade of the rank 1. Soohyun collapses, exhausted, as silence finally returns to Miller Valley. A child's voice cries out for him, breaking the calm after the firestorm. He wakes with a jolt, feeling every bone in his body protest with pain. Opening his eyes, he sees the village children smiling with genuine relief. "It's good you woke up. We thought you were going to turn into roasted meat." Soohyun tries to move, but a muscle spasm throws him back onto the bed. The men explain that the monster is dead and food is secured for months. No one can believe he survived that heat without severe skin injuries. "I guess I got lucky. Apart from this unbearable pain, I'm whole." He looks at the little girl and feels that everything was worth it. The system confirms 100% completion. Miller Village is safe. But the global rank 1 notification shines, warning that peace is over. Soohyun knows his name will now be the target of all the powerful. The villagers surround him, calling him a savior and swearing eternal gratitude for the miracle. Savior, that's too heavy a word for someone like me. In the dead of night, he prepares his things to leave without fanfare or goodbyes. A small shadow appears at the door, blocking his path to solitary freedom. Damn it, I was caught red-handed. How did you know I was leaving now? Mellie asks if he's going to save another village, and Soohyun just smiles sadly. The girl extends a small cloth bag, her hands trembling slightly. Good luck, uncle. Eat these fruits when you're bored on your journey. The young man pauses for a second, touched by the purity of that brave child. My name is Mellie. I'll never forget you, no matter where you are. All right, Mellie, take good care of yourself and grow into a strong woman. He steps through the portal, and the fantasy landscape vanishes in a blink. In a luxurious car in the city, Choi Hak-joon appears tense about the future. The man beside him notices his nervousness and tries to break the ice. As if our prodigy would get nervous about a simple rank evaluation. He bets that Hak-joon will achieve an A rank after reaching the 15th floor. The young man looks out the window, ignoring the empty praises of those who only seek profit. The driver keeps his focus on the road as the atmosphere in the car cools. The executive mentions a name that finally makes Hak-joon react with interest, that Kim Soohyun guy should appear for his evaluation soon. Hak-joon wonders how the man knows so much about this unknown person's progress. The Aries Guild is keeping an eye on every step of the tower's new rank 1. The warning is clear. If he finds Soohyun, he must bring him to the guild immediately. If he accepts being your replacement, I might even consider setting you free. The executive's smile hides a threat Hak-joon knows all too well. Freedom comes at a price, and that price involves betraying a potential ally. Hak-joon clenches his fists, feeling the weight of the Aries Guild's invisible chains. They arrive at the Awakened Certification Agency, the hub of governmental power. The place is packed with aspiring heroes and greedy bounty hunters. The man orders him to ascend to the abyss as soon as the ranking is set. Any deviation in conduct will be severely punished by the organization's leadership. You know things will get difficult for everyone if you fail. I know perfectly well what's at stake here. Hak-joon enters the building, feeling the envious gazes of those who recognize him. He sighs, weary of being just a pawn in the game of the powerful. The lobby shines with luxury, but to him, the place feels like a gilded cage. Across the street, Soohyun watches the building with unsettling calm. Fortunately, it seems I arrived just in time for what I came to do. It's been a long time since he set foot in an official evaluation center. The agency is where the fate of every awakened is sealed by an official stamp. He presents himself at the reception, keeping his hood low to avoid attracting attention. Receiving a rank is the only way to legally enter dungeons and profit. Soohyun sits on a common bench, patiently waiting to be called by the system. Around him, people discuss growth potential and rare special abilities. Scouts from various guilds circle the hall like hawks ready to pounce. An employee announces that preparations are almost ready for the next group. A commotion begins to form near the mana measurement machines. A man shouts that his rank should be higher, accusing the agency of error. Why are you lowering my rank? I demand an explanation now. Soohyun observes the scene, knowing that many try to cheat to earn more money. The security guard tries to restrain the man, but the situation threatens to spiral out of control. Choi Hak-joon intervenes, grabbing the cheater's wrist with absurd strength. He points to a hidden bracelet that artificially boosts the mana coefficient. A rare item like that in the hands of a mediocre guy like you? The man tries to retaliate, but the pressure emanating from Hak-joon makes him recoil. If you think it's unfair, take off that ring and try your luck honestly. A smirk of superiority appears on the face of the Aries Guild's prodigy. I doubt you could even get a rank D without that trinket. The charlatan grinds his teeth, humiliated before everyone present in the hall. The security guards drag the man out as the crowd parts. Hak-joon wipes his hand on his clothes, visibly annoyed by the cheap interruption. I wasn't in a good mood and got a little carried away. He turns and notices Soohyun's presence, observing him from afar. We met on the 2nd floor. Do you remember me? Soohyun nods, surprised to have been recognized so quickly. Why the shocked face? It's your first evaluation too, isn't it? Hak-joon finds it odd that someone with Soohyun's aura took so long. Soohyun invents an excuse about personal problems and taking care of his sick mother. The redhead doesn't fully believe him, but decides not to press the young man for now. I had some private matters to resolve before coming here. I am Choi Hak-joon of the Aries Guild. Remember that name well, rookie. He is called for the tests and walks off laughing, confident in his overwhelming power. Soohyun looks at his back, remembering that this guild will be destroyed in the future. Hak-joon enters the testing room under the watchful eyes of the government evaluators. Why would he do something like that in that timeline? The announcement echoes. Choi Hak-joon is officially rank B, an incredibly rare feat for his age. The crowd whispers about his talent as the next name is called out. Next on the list, Kim Soohyun, no guild affiliation. Please come down. Silence falls over the hall as the murmurs quickly begin to grow. People wonder if it's the same guy who dominated the tower's rankings. Hak-joon stops midway, his heart pounding at the sound of the legendary name. The guild's promise about the substitute rushes back into his mind with full force. Soohyun walks to the center of the room, ready to show the world who he truly is. The world isn't the same anymore, and now everyone will see Kim Soohyun's true power. But what comes next? The legendary hero is ready to change everything again. Want to know what happens in part 2? Comment below.